Looks like we're live. Welcome back to another Distilling 101 podcast on Distillers Talk Questions and Answers. Hope everybody's logging in. I'm going to go ahead and start posting some links so everybody gets settled into place. And I post some links so they can find me. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Bear with me when I post these links. That's something we have to do every time. Wish there was a workaround to make sure they post properly. Last time I had a few that didn't get posted properly, so got to keep it in mind. I had a wet derby today. Does anybody have Sovereignty as the winner? I was kind of hoping old Sandman would win from my buddy Wes. That's a good looking horse too, white or gray, I guess. But I guess the muddy track has been around here all damn day. But bear with me. See. Bear with me. Gotta try to go a little slower so it doesn't kick me for posting too fast. You post too fast on Facebook and they think you're a damn bot. So they don't like it. So I gotta go slowly. Make sure that I get past. What's going on, Brandon? Hey, Craig. I appreciate your heads up on that, Craig, on the chat. We got it taken care of. I guess somehow it accidentally got deleted, man. I don't know what the fuck happened. We're trying to figure it out. What's up, Wayne? Hey, Dave. What's going on, brother? Hope you're feeling better. What's up, Mikey? Hey, Anthony. Yes, Anthony, I have a bever still. What's going on, Cole? Yeah, Anthony, we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let me finish posting these links out there. I got to try to do it slowly, or else they think I'm spamming and they ban me or block my posts. So, hope everybody's having a good weekend. I hope everybody wants some money on that Derby race. I don't know. Did y'all have sovereignty? That's kind of what we're fighting for right now, ain't it? It's just, I mean, hopefully they get a few more posts before they put the skids to me. Usually about 10 is all they let me post. I don't know what's going on with them. And yeah, that's it. Shit. They get to post it in just plain grains and shine. Damn it. That's Michael and Brittany's group. I like posting it there. Damn. I didn't even get maybe 8 that time. That wasn't good. What's going on, Mark? What's up, John? You lost 26. Yeah, it's sloppy today, man. It's a rainy day here. I'm glad I didn't bet because I'd have put my money on Sandman. I saw that it was running. I'm like, yeah, that's my buddy Wes. So that's where my money would have been. It wasn't in the top 3, so I would have definitely lost no matter what combination I had. That's a good question. Can my thumper and worm be too high, as in they sit about a foot higher than the bottom of your steel? Um, no, actually, it's fine to have them elevated as long as you have something good for them to sturdy place for them to sit on. Technically, the thumper as close plumbing wise as you can get it to the thumper, the better, because it retains heat and it'll maintain that heat quicker. So if you can plumb it directly into that bypass and get it as close to the thumper as you can. I don't know about sitting it on the lid like a lot of them come. You definitely want to get rid of those little teeny ass slobber boxes anyway. So need to get a little bit better. The thing about, I'm not sure which Weber you're talking about. Is it the 3-pot or the football steel? And AJ, yeah, you weren't the one that mentioned Weber. So back to you. The thumper, you just want to plumb it in fairly close to the pot. As far you want it to kind of get some heat. It doesn't hurt to get a little bit of heat from the pot or from the fire that comes up from the pot. So if it's like sitting up over next to the pot, getting some of that heat coming off of it, that's okay. Because when you're running your thumper, you want it to kind of be preheated, especially if you're using a bypass. When you bypass, your heads and fours using my bypass, uh, it doesn't hold that heat in to your thumper as well. So when you open the bypass up and your vapor starts entering the thumper, it takes a bit for it to warm up again. So you get some you get some of the I guess it refluxes, vaporizes, condenses into liquid, and then it re-vaporizes again from the heat of the steam. So it happens quicker the warmer it is. So the warmer it is, the quicker that can happen, and the less liquid buildup that you'll have in there from condensation. But other than that, going down to instead of pumping up maybe to a condenser, going out and down would be easier. That way you don't have it get kind of some reflux coming out of the thumper. So maybe going into the thumper high, coming out and just elbowing down to the condenser instead of having it up high, maybe of some benefit as well. Won't make a whole lot of difference, but if you can keep that thumper plumbed in close, and then a lot of people put the gray um, foam insulator on it, the pipe insulation, and you can put that between the pot and the thumper to help keep that warm, so you don't get a lot of cooling off between the pot and the thumper, and that can help as well. What's going on, Scott? I wouldn't doubt it, man. I mean, Secretary's got a lot of good horses, a lot of good breeds, and I mean that's quite the family tree it has, I'm sure. But I didn't look at the form. I didn't get to racing for him for today. I used to bet a lot on horses. I haven't really done much in the last few years. Me and a buddy of mine used to bet the shit out of them. I did all right. I'm up on them. I can say that, but um, yeah, just don't get into it as much. The crowds getting out there. We used to go over to Keeneland and watch the Derby. I've been to the Derby a few times. Infield, partied on the infield when I was younger. We used to bring a tent and sit there and drink shine and watch it. I remember we were camped in the infield and sitting there drinking some shine. This older black man was sitting kind of in front of us, and he saw us drinking that shine. He's like, "Now I know that ain't real moonshine you all are drinking." Hell yeah! He's like, "Let me try a sip of that." He's like, "I don't think it's, I don't think it's real shine." This probably mm, early '90s. So we slipped the jar over to him. He picked a big old sip and his eyes would open up. And he's like, "I mean, damn, that's a real shine." Yeah, he was a character. We had a good time. But back to beverage question, Anthony. Yes, I've got a football steel beverage. Um, which beverage do you got? You got the 3-pot beverage, or you got a football beverage? What kind you got, brother? Yeah, losing 26 ain't bad. I've lost a bit, but I had a pretty good one a few years back, and that definitely put me up in the long run over the ponies. I know now that it's the Red Mile here, a harness track we have here in town. They got some kind of slot machines. I don't know, some kind of horse racing slot thing. It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of legal gambling, I guess now. That won't be long. We'll have casinos here, I hope. All right, Anthony, you got to tell me, brother. We used a 3-pot or a 2-pot, or did it come with the football head or the milkshake looking top? What you got? What's going on, KP? Let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, Craig, I appreciate you giving me the heads up on that. Um, chat's back up. Yeah, appreciate the heads up. I don't know, something happened. Oh, you haven't got it yet. Well, that's a good thing because I'm gonna I'm gonna help you out. Go for the football steel. Those little 3 pots are nice. If you're getting like maybe a 5 with a little pot, but the little thumper that comes with it is tiny. It's got like a little downcomer, copper downcomer. You can use it as a slobber box or as a thumper, depending on how you rig that little copper downcomer coming inside of it. And then the condensers are just grossly undersized. So it's a decent deal just to have a good stainless boiler um, with a decent gasket for the lid, but the plumbing on it's not really up to snuff. Of course, it's Chinese shit. Um, and it really, it's easy to over tighten and crack the gaskets on them, and they don't seal real well, and they don't last long, even if you do use them right every time. So they wear out over time, and they crack regardless of how well you treat them and how good you do. Um, so they they don't hold up, and they've got this flex pipe stuff. Really, not what you want. Um, but Fieldbilly makes some good attachments and accessories for it. That'll, you can get your plumbing running. I'm not sure if he has a gasket since yet. Tough to find and get, um, especially for the plumbing. But you can build your own out, and he can help you. I'm sure he's got a lot of videos on it. If not, we can maybe uh, do one day and make a video on it. But basically, taking out the flex lines, taking out what they've got there, you can enlarge the hole. And I recommend getting a 10, 13, 18, 15, 10 plus gallons. Less than that, really, you go to a lot of trouble just for a little bit. And all of them work well on a turkey fryer or on a stovetop if you've got the right kind. If you got a gas stovetop, perfect. If you've got an infrared stovetop that won't cycle on and off when it's on high, or 9 or 10 at a high, as long as it doesn't cycle on and off. Mine doesn't, so it works out perfectly. But some do, and you don't want them cycling on and off. That's to maintain a temperature. It's great for cooking, but you know with your steel, you want to get that full temp constant, because you get the fluctuating temps, and as the temps fluctuate, you get different distillates coming off at a time. And what's going on, James? Good to have you with us, brother, from across the pond. A little early in the morning over there. Glad you're with us. But so if you can drill a larger hole and get you some 5/8 coming off at a decent diameter, you can get it could reduce your distilling times. And what's going on, Curtis? Hey, Jeff. What's up, Steve? So opening up that plumbing to some larger plumbing allows it to work a little quicker. Like I say, get rid of that slobber box, get you a decent thumper or jar rigs. Get you some jar rigs off Phil Billy, or I think he probably even has some videos on how to make your own if you're able to solder and make your own. Just rig in a bypass and make a jar rig and use that for flavor infusing. Um, One thing I will say, using a thumper is kind of an advanced distilling technique, and it's really not not where a beginner wants to start. They're especially when they're way undersized like the ones they give you. So um, Rerun your feints. Yeah, let me finish this one, Bourbon Tribe, and I'll get right to you, brother. That's a good question that I want to address. But let me finish with this favorite question, and you're right up next. Um, so let me scroll back to your question. All right, here we go. So getting going from your pot with a larger diameter into a jar rig. Those jars are much better. The thumpers that come with those are just way undersized. They fill up on you. A lot of times they're slobber boxes, and if you get them further too far away from the pot, they don't retain heat enough to stay empty. They overfill, and then they just puke into the condenser, and you get a shitty looking, distillate coming off there. What's going on, Brian? Coming off, and it just doesn't work out well. So having a jar rig on there with a bypass, you can see everything that's going on and infuse flavor with those jars. But when you do that, make sure that the infusing flavor that you're adding to the jars, as you take them off and dump them and add it, make sure it's hot. So keep it next to if it's on the stove that you're running, keep a pan, maybe that little slobber box pan that you threw away, maybe just keep that on the stove to um, help keep the infusion flavors. Like if you're just running like strawberry daiquiri mix or whatever is a popular thing. People get the dailies, the big jug of strawberry daiquiri mix. You dump that in there. Keep it hot. Keep it, warmed up on the stove and hot. That way, when you dump it in that jar, it's not going to go from hot to cold or cool and crack on you or bust. Because that's generally the only time I see jars. And use good canning jars. Don't get some of this cheap shit that was a mayonnaise jar at one time or something like that. Use good quality canning jars, and but pour that hot liquid in your hot infusion in there. Don't let it get cold, because that can cause them to bust on you. Use grill gloves when you're using it, and that's what's good about the bypass. You can open that bypass up, bypass it, and change your jars out, and then open it back up, and you're not losing anything because it's still going through the condenser. But yeah, it's getting it set up, and the condenser that comes with those 3-pot stills, they're just not really, they're way undersized. So if you don't mind doing some work, those 3 pots are fine. But I will highly encourage you to invest in instead the football. The football stills basically comes with a football shaped head. You'll know it when you see it. It's not the milkshake one, it looks like a milkshake. This one, has the shape of a football. Those work really well. They've got a canister filter that works okay. It's properly sized, at least. It's not the best in the world, but at least it's properly sized, and it's a contained condenser, so you can force water through it. So you can actually keep it much cooler than one that you have to, that's an open top that will overflow. This will never overflow because it's contained in a canister. So you can force more water in there, more cooler water in there, get better circulation and get even more even cooling that way, if you follow me. So it makes it pretty decent. Mine had a little bit of a negative slope in it. I got some smearing, so I just use a big old shotgun condenser on mine. But you can use the football head for like your brandies and your whiskeys, and Phil Billy carries it, and other people, have some uh, sight glasses and columns and things like that you can add to that lid. See, on the top of the football bever's lid is a ferrule, and it's 2.5-inch ferrule. So you'll get a 2.5 to 2 reducer, or go from 2 to 3 or 4 if you want to increase the size of your column or decrease it to a 2, depending on your budget. Uh, if you can make some pretty cool little columns, the phlegmators on there. There's just, you can put a horse head on the top of your bever, instead of the column. And the football, you can go with a horse head, which is similar to the football. They basically do the same thing. The football's got some rectification valves that let you open it up and blow off some steam and stuff. I don't really blow off the methanol and all that, rectify with it. I just pitch the heads and fours as you normally would. But the 13 is definitely a good pot. I went with 18 and a half. I just wanted more. And I wanted to be able to do 15, which is a little bit more than I can do in my keg steel. Keg steels are another good option. They're very durable, do the same thing. They've got that ferrule on the top that's 2. You don't have to have the reducer. If you know somebody that welds, you can weld in some ferrules on the bottom and use electric. You can use them on, but you can't use them on your stove. So that's the difference in them. One's a pot, one of them is pretty much dedicated to a turkey fryer or electric elements in the bottom sides. Now, to get to Bourbon Tribe's question, heard this being discussed in another group. If you're running the same corn, sugar, USSJM, top shine, and that's Uncle Jesse's sour mash. How many times can you rerun your feints? I guess I should clarify keeping feints after a run, then mashing again, and then adding feints to the next run. Yeah, you just continue that. Yeah, definitely. Now, don't confuse backset and feints, and I know you got it right there, but a lot of people don't understand the difference. Backset's what you have left in your pot that's pretty acidic when you're done. And when you're doing a sour mash, Uncle Jesse's simple sour mash, what you want to do is, or any sour mash for that matter, you want to run all the alcohol, as much of the alcohol as you can, out of your back set. So you want to run it all the way down in your tails and get those feints. A lot of people with feints can be heads and fours and tails all mixed together. I do mine a little differently. I don't keep the heads and fours. The high heads and the high fours, especially. Now, when it gets closer to the hearts, if it's just uh, some heads just easing into the hearts range jar, yeah, I might throw that one in there. But the high stuff that's full of acetone, there is ethanol in there. It can be recovered, but I'm not going to add that ethyl acetate back into my mix just to have to try to get it distilled out again. If you follow me, it's just not worth what little extra ethanol you get out of it. For me, I just can't bring myself to putting it back in the pot. I know there's more in there from the next mash, but I'm not going to concentrate. I'm not going to add to it. So a lot of people do. I do the same on stripping runs, and a lot of people say I'm crazy. And there's no right and wrong to it. It's just, how much does it mean to you? How much trouble do you want to go and to get it all out again? For me, it's just not worth it. I've never seen it worth it at all. But I also see the same people saying, yeah, just save those, stop it at 80 or something, and no. But I see a lot of people stopping at 80 proof, and there's a lot of liquor in that pot still when you do that. So run it from down to 10% or 20 proof, or further if you can, if you got the time. But generally when you get about 10 proof, 5%, you're not going to get any more out, because it's just going to boil off with water at about the same ratio, because of the azeotropes. So basically, you get around 10 proof, 20 proof, you can quit. And then save all those tails in a bucket or whatever, jar, big jar. If you got a big 5-gallon jar, or one of those big, like a carboy, glass carboy that they use for fermenting, something like that. I know a lot of people prefer to use glass. I do too. I don't like using buckets per se, especially when it's going to contain heads and high concentration of heads and ethyl acetates and those kind of things. Because we've looked at the scientific data sheet on high density polyethylene, HDPE plastic, and low density polyethylene plastic, LDPE, and they have really, really good stats on, they're not really, ethanol doesn't break them down at all. They're not soluble at all. But acetone or ethyl acetates will. So if you're trying to save all feints, heads, and tails, don't put them in a bucket. Try to use some glass, especially for the headsy stuff. Back to once we run it down to 20% or so, or 20 proof, 10%. Um, then you got a back set that's not going to kill everything once you dump it back in there. So mix your sugar with your back set, that you're used to using, get it all mixed up, let it cool, add that back in, and once you get into the groove, you'll know how much sugar you need to add to get to the right, you know, gravity, for your next run. So just add that amount of sugar. And what I do is I'll cook some grains. I'll take some old grains out, spent grains out, X amount. So if I take, one scoop or three scoops, let's just say I've got a strainer, one of those pretty good sized screen strainers, I'll dip it in there and, and strain out and sparge it, get all the stuff off of it. But I'll get one or two scoops of that out, and I'll scoop a couple into a pot. I'll just cook it up, gelatinize it, and then dump it in there. And I'll just dump the back set on it. And, you've already got nutrients in there in the bottom that's reusing. You've already got yeast in there that you're reusing. And if you don't dump hot water on it, you're not going to kill it. Or that hot back set, you're not going to kill it. Or that high proof back set on it, you're not going to kill it. So after that, let it work off. And what he's talking about is the tails or the feints. Save those for your next run. Now you can load a thumper. If you're getting a little more advanced, you can put your tails in a thumper. That works real well. You can mix your tails with some of the infusion, liquids that you're using to infuse. That way, it thins it down, bubbles well through it, and that way it's just not too thick. And you can just put it back into the pot as well each time. And really, unless you're like reusing it, there's not a big issue reusing it. I know that there's big talk now that you don't want to do that with like a brandy, um, because you can kind of concentrate some fours that way, but it's really tough to concentrate to get it to that point. So if you're just using tails, carry it over and do it each time. Just keep carrying your tails over and tails over. And I guess if you feel that you're just building up oils, you can skip a time, because there's a lot of oils in those tails, and they might have a tendency to kind of build up in your back set over time if you keep adding them back and adding them back, and you're distilling everything off and leaving some of those behind each time. Yeah, you can skip a time. You don't have to have those, and you can use them for something else, in a different run or something else. That way you kind of cycle them out, and you don't get too much of a concentration of some of those fusel oils in your pot. I can see that happening. There are other talks about rerunning feints, and it's stacking methanol. That's yeah. What they're finding out is that all the methanol and higher alcohols don't all come off at the very first. That's been a misnomer. A lot of people thought that it's a myth. It's never been that way. People say, oh, you can cook them off right off the first, leave the cap off and cook it at 170, and those will all cook off, and that's also a myth. It doesn't happen like that. If you're fractionally distilling, you got a fractional distillation, you got a fractional column. Yeah, you can do it this way, but that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about. We're talking about simple pot stills, and when you run pot still method, you're going to get the majority of your four shots in your method on your heads off first. Majority of them do come off first, but they're finding that they carry over all the way through the run, and they're also in the tails. So if you keep if you keep rerunning them, they say that you're essentially stacking them. And if you're discarding them at the first, and you're not using the four shots and heads in the all feints, and you're just using tails, bullshit. They're not going to stack up like that. And I can see some fusel oil building up and maybe giving you some flavor issues, or things like that. But as long as you're pulling them off first each time, anything that's stacked over carries over. They're going to come off. You're going to get the majority of them off early on. They will still have a small amount carrying all the way through, but yeah, it's going to be hard. Now, if you're doing like, let's say, a um, a brandy, and brandies have um, higher amounts of methanol and heads. So if you're doing a brandy, I wouldn't necessarily save all feints, hearts, fours. I mean fours and four shots with the tails, and carry those over and continuously do that with like a brandy because they're high. But like with a sugar shine, you're hardly getting any, fours and heads and those. You're not getting a lot of that at all because there's not really any cellulose that's being consumed and converted into a wood alcohol, which is a methanol. But like in a lot of fruits and stuff, especially when you're using pectic enzymes, you've got a lot of the pectic enzymes eating up a lot of the cellulose, and that creates a cellulosic sugar that gets eaten, converted into a methanol, um, which is why wines and some brandies can give you pretty good headaches. Um, but I think if you do like I'm talking about and just continue to pitch fours and heads off and not throw that into your all feints and keep distilling that over and over again, I don't think that stacking in a reconcentration is going to be an issue. But I think if you were to say the four shots and the heads and include those with the tails and the all feints, I think that stacking could definitely become a problem for sure. But that's a little more advanced. But love talking about that shit. I'm definitely into that, and definitely appreciate your question, man. It's an excellent question, and glad I got a chance to talk to everybody about it. Um, but you can been running for about let's see. Oh yeah, tri clamps definitely the way to go. If you've ever pasted, if you've ever used paste and stuff and had to paste joints every time and clean that shit off every time and to redo it, yeah, man, you'll love tri clamps. More than most people that just never pasted. They just don't appreciate them like we do. That's had to use the paste. No, brother, I'm down in Kentucky, which ain't too far, but there's bubble plates that copper strip the moonshine flavors. Trying to decide to include from the still this start pipe. Um, yeah, bubble plates do strip flavor. Column. When you use bubble plates, that's a column. And when you're using a column like that, we're not talking about like the column I was talking about earlier. That's a fractionalization column that basically distills fractionally, and it can separate all the different alcohols just through their volatility and the height on the column where they tend to hang, um, or like in a continuous still with that kind of column, it's a little bit different for them. But yeah, on a pot still, when you add a column, you're generally increasing your proof, and when you increase your proof, you're decreasing the water. That's basically you're distilling the water out from the alcohol. So that's what your doubler or your thumper does. It helps remove some of the water, which is increasing proof, right? You take out water, you increase the proof. So as you decrease the amount of water in there, the water holds a lot of your flavors. A lot of your flavors are bound to the water molecules, and they bond to the water molecules better than they do a lot of the alcohol molecules. And so, as you increase the proof, a lot of times you're decreasing flavor once you get beyond a certain point. So using the bubble plates, yeah, the bubble plates technically they help scrub a lot of sulfides out, and that's why you see a lot of copper, in the bubble plates. That's helping scrubbing out some of the sulfides, and it's also creating a flux inside that column. Low down low, you'll have a tendency to have more water. Higher up in the column, you'll have more alcohol, and in between, you've got a flux of dropping water and water that also contains ethanol hitting some hotter temperatures as they drop, because the temperatures of the pot's a lot hotter than the temperatures within the column itself. So it's like a 20-degree difference, especially if you got a deflagrator at the top. So as it's dropping down, the alcohols are going to be evaporated off. A lot of times that water drops on down and the alcohol goes back up. So you have a little constant flux going on in that column, and that's how you increase your proof and can make a vodka, which is basically considered a neutral spirit. When they say neutral, that pretty much means flavor wise. You're not going to really have a lot of flavor to be carried forward. Which is perfectly fine if you're making vodkas for, like mixed drinks, or for post flavored drinks and things like that. A lot of times you don't want a corn flavor coming through if you're trying to make something, that tastes strawberry, because maybe corn and strawberry clashes maybe for some people, and they just don't like the combination of the flavor of the two. So you can get all that corn flavor out by using the still, or you can get a lot of that bite from just making a sugar wash, or you can even get some of the bad taste of a turbo yeast out by using a column. So, you can make stuff with that column and make a neutral, which is what a lot of people are striving for, so they can, make a decent mixed drink that doesn't have flavors in there that they don't want. So they're not really going for like a mountain brandy. Um, so I've been running 4 years. I always kept some of my heads and tails and rerun them. But I'm hearing chatter saying that might not be the best. Yeah, I don't ever keep heads anymore. Just if you just keep running your tails and doing those, you're not going to run into as much problem. But if you throw the fours and heads back in there with them, I think that you're just kind of concentrating those. I don't think there's really enough. Some people saying there's more in the tails than the heads. I've yet to see any really heavy scientific evidence that shows, gas chromatography or something like that can prove that. I do know that there are some all the way through the runs. I've done that for quite some time, and I see these talks going on too, and I've gotten into some of the talks with them and stuff. But yeah, I think as long as you just toss those fours and heads every time, even stripping, whatever, you don't need them. Don't throw them away. I mean, there's lots of good uses for them. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on what else can you use your heads and fours for. It's funny to hear what some people use them for. You know, I've heard, everything from cleaning out your bongs to killing grass. We can just go on. It's fun. Maybe we'll do an episode one day and everybody can brainstorm and we can come up with a big list of, uses for your fours and heads. That'd be fun. But yeah, I would say that you're fine. Just don't put the heads in there anymore. Just keep rerunning your tails, and you'll pull off the tails. And like I say, once you get some oils built up, um, you don't have to do it every time. You can just run it down to maybe 60 and just throw the rest away. I hate saying that, but but with the sour mash, I like to add some fresh grains. Like every generation, I pull out a couple scoops, add a couple scoops. It's not a whole bunch. It's easy to cook on your stove. You don't have to break out a big huge vat and break out a whole bag of corn and do all that. You can just do a few pounds. On a stove in a normal pot and cook it up and just throw it in there. Once it cools down, for the flavor, just for your flavor profile. Um, so you don't have to gelatinize and throw in that little high temp and glucose if you don't want to, but just for the flavor. Also, a good trick is once you get some jar rig set up and you're running a corn liquor like that, um, try adding some cream corn to your jar rigs. You'll be glad you did, because they carry a lot of that good corn flavor over, and it makes for really good corn liquor if you like corn liquor. But I used to have a little cabin down by the border in Wayne County. Yeah, we get down Tennessee often. Got some friends down there. There's a lot of people in the militia down in Tennessee. Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. We got quite a few in all. Say 2 pounds of sugar per gallon. Um, Steve, that depends. If you're just doing like a sugar wash, yeah, you wanna use two. But pull out your hydrometer and always use that hydrometer and try to do it. Use your temperature conversion chart as well. But yeah, start with a pound and a half, pound and three quarters. If you don't have any other source of sugars, or you don't have any starches that are getting converted, yeah, 2 pounds per gallon is a pretty good start. If you don't want it real hot, you can cut back a little bit on the 2 pounds, but use your hydrometer and get it to 1070 or whatever. I think 2 pounds is closer to probably 1080, which some people think is getting a little bit on the hot side. But if you got grains in there and you're doing some conversions and things like that, you're definitely going to be able to cut back on that sugar. So, or if you've got fruit with sugars in it, you're definitely going to be able to cut back on that. So, I think 2 pounds of sugar per gallon is just for like a sugar wash. And if you're doing a sugar wash, that's fine. It's probably the cheapest and easiest to do. But it's also probably one of the least liked as far as drinking wise. It's really hot. It's fighting liquor. It's really hot. It's got some bite to it. But you can put it on a column and run it up to 190, and then proof it down and mix it with drinks, and it's not so bad. It's not bad that way. So it's just according to what you want and what your palate is. I would say if you want a good corn liquor, put that cream corn in, like I said, and carry that cream corn flavor over. It'll make a really good corn liquor if you like corn liquor. Um, Trying to read two things at once here. Let's see. Easiest flavor. Also, there's a lot of things that don't carry over well, but um, it's just practice. But peaches carry over fairly well, which is why they're pretty popular. Um, Stronger fruit flavors, you can get strawberry to carry over fair. Cherries carry over, well. Hard to do without tasting medicine. But any of your fruits that are very strong do. But others like pears, or watermelon that just don't have a lot of flavor. And like watermelon, so much water, and pears really such a mild flavor. Don't get a lot of carryover. Plums get good carryover. So it's to me, it's carryover is hard to explain because a lot of people, their first time that they start running brandy and they start infusing flavors, they expect to just get smacked in the face by that flavor and it to be strong in that flavor like a mixed drink, and it's you're gonna be disappointed. You're going to find notes of that flavor. You're going to get a little bit of smell, and you're going to get a little bit of taste, but it's not going to be a real sweet, strong flavor unless it's been post flavored, or if it pukes over or something. You might get some of that flavor carrying over. But find that around 1.4. Brother, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm not. I'm going to scroll back. You see, I'm not sure what you're talking about, brother. Oh, is a sweet spot for sugar, depending on how much grain you're. Oh, you mean 1.4 pounds? Yeah, yeah. I think going a little less and adding it just using your hydrometer to. But I wouldn't definitely go above a 1080. Um, it starts getting a little bit too sweet and a little too hot. But start with like a pound and a half, and yeah, or 1.4, and check your gravity, and go 1060 to 1070, and you'll have a decent drink. Uh, but if you don't care about how hot it is or the bite, and you're going to use a column, and you're just going to strip and just get it all off there, and run it slower maybe the next time, and just stripping, strip it off, and do it that way a little faster on your column, and strip that flavor away and go fast, and then infuse your flavors with your jars on your slower run the next time. Um, if you add a column, how big a difference in power heat does it take, if any? um, I I can't tell that it takes that much difference. I mean, it's not something that you're going to crank up. You just kind of let it do its work. It does take longer, so that you can plan on. It will take a little bit longer, so it does slow you down in that regard, which probably in turn it does maybe reduce the heat a little bit, um, but it does increase the time a little bit. But it depends on the deflegmator, and how cold you got that, how much reflux you got coming back down in. Um, but you don't want to overpower the reflux by turning up the steel too much and forcing your bubbles too high in the plates. You want them to you want the dancing in the mix to kind of focus in the middle. So I guess if you're running too hot, it'll be towards the top, and you're running a little bit too slow, or you're deflag too hard, it'll be bubbling a little lower, and you won't get much depth on your bubble plates either. So that'll be kind of your indicator on too hot, too cold. I generally don't use a lot of mash in the thumper. My thoughts are, the mash has fours and heads, and if you put it in there, you're you, you're just going to have to deal with those again coming off the thumper from the mash that's in the thumper. So generally, I'll load the thumper with tails or flavor infusion or both, and then just put the mash. I mean, as you run, you can add more mash into the pot if you have a valve on it and you shut everything down. I mean, and you know how much has come off. You can add a little bit more in there. It's dangerous, but if you have a valve, and you can do it that way, but just be very, very, very careful, because you got some pressure built up anytime you're using a thumper. So when you open that up, you're going to get a little steam coming off, and when you pour in, it's going to want to spit back out. Um, Probably not a good thing for beginners to do. Probably shouldn't talk too much about that, but you can um, do that as well with if you want to get more mash or more run out of it. Typically, I just wait and do when I do a second run. A lot of times, I'll do a second run, and if I do, then I'll just put that mash in with the what I've stripped, and kind of proof it down with that mash when I add it back in and get the second run. I'll do the mash then again, I'll take out a little bit of fours and heads, because I know that new mash that I added is going to have some fours and heads as well. Doing a maple syrup infused hickory king sour mash. Right. Can I or should I not use some of what's in the thumper to proof with? Um, yeah, you can. I mean, what's left in your thumper is basically um, water and some of your back set and some ethanol and tails and other things still in there. So, sure, absolutely. Just don't just make sure it's cool when you dump it into the sour mash bucket. You don't want to dump anything real hot in there and start killing anything off, some of your yeast and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely you can. And it's probably be good anything that you're getting out of the thumper. If you got an infusion jar, and you got that hot stuff coming out of your thumper, especially like if you got a drain on your thumper, that's awesome. and you can just drain that off and mix that with your infusion flavors to help keep it hot, right? And if you're using, then you can recirculate that, and back into your thumper if you're using flavor infusers, especially like if it's a jar rig thumper system that you got. No, no. I, I mean, are you set on sweet feeds? I mean, do you do a lot of sweet feeds? Do you like them? I've had a lot of mixed results, and generally, I'm not a big fan. I guess I've got maybe some of the wrong kind or something in the past, but I don't mind corn and molasses. It's just that a lot of the sweet feeds will add a lot. And I wish I had Sean Peterman on here. He's worked at a lot of these grain mills and stuff, and he knows a lot about feeds and all this. As he worked in that industry, very knowledgeable guy. So if you want to look him up and pick his brain, he could probably answer this question better than I can. But there's a lot of stuff that's going into a lot of those sweet feeds that you don't want, and it really depends on where it's being made. A lot of times they'll add vitamins and supplements. A lot of times the corn that's going into that sweet feeds is the shit that gets swept up off the floor, along with some other stuff. And it's just, not always the best. It's probably not always the best quality blackstrap either. So you're going to get basically a fertilizer grade black strap thrown on, some cob and some kernel if you're lucky. So yeah, and vitamins and supplements and nutrients that may be okay for the yeast, but they just don't impart good flavors. So, oh, I see. Yeah, I think we might have talked about that once before. Maybe find somebody with some animals that would like it, and maybe work up a trade, because the sweet feed's probably a little bit more expensive than just a 50-pound bag of corn. So, I mean, if you got any farmers around there, they'd probably work up a trade with you if you can't return it and exchange it for some just regular old corn. Maybe some of them give you some corn, oats, and barley. They call it cob. A lot of people confuse that with a corn cob, and it's not. It's corn, oats, and barley mix, and that's pretty good stuff too. But yeah, I remember we talked about that before. Bag of oats and grains that is molasses covered. Now, as far as just molasses covered oats and grains, that's fine. It as long as it's not just the lowest of the lowest grade. Sometimes that can be sulfured, and it's just really not good to use. It doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, and it's like 40%. And a lot of times those don't get converted. The other 60% don't convert, so it's going to have a sweet taste. Um, Probably not the best conditions. I know that I think you can use like an invertase enzyme to help break down some of those unfermentables. But I think I'd start with like a golden barrel, or a C grade um, molasses. I think we threw up the chart last time. Hey Lisa, and use one of those. Let's see if I can find that chart. But yeah, that would something like that would be pretty much the best scenario for you to use. Let's see here. Damned if I didn't forget to save that damn chart. Wait a minute. Let's see if I put it. I can't believe I forgot to put that. Let me find it. Bear with me just a second. Not there. I just can't hardly read. Just a second. Let me see if I got it here. Um, no, but I'll find it and I'll pull it down for next time. But I have I got it from the Distilling Institute, so it wasn't something of mine from me. But I got it from the Distilling Institute, and it talked about the different grades of molasses. But I'll pull it off there again and reshare it. I thought I'd save that. I know I shared it in here, so I have to have that somewhere. It's got to be here somewhere. If I could see. That it? That it? No, damn it. Oh well. Anyway, it showed the different grades and different sugar content of each grade of molasses. I will find that and get you guys, but infusion jars and drains is definitely the way to go. It doesn't have to be a jar. You know, you can make the best case scenario instead of a jar. It's copper, and it's just got an infusion on the top that you can infuse without having to remove anything. That way, you just run the bypass, you know, and open up the valve, pour in your infuser, close the valve. You got a drain at the bottom, so you don't have to take anything off. You don't have to have the grill gloves. A lot safer. Just using the bypass, your drain, and your infusion port. Much easier that way. But you don't get to see all the bubbling and sloshing, and you don't get to see the level of it filling up. I love watching the jars splash. It's, you know, I guess a little ADHD got to keep me got to keep my attention somehow. So you know, it's fun to watch that. Yeah, definitely. You know, definitely use your column. Those if you're using what I'm thinking of, it comes with like a sight glass and then a long tube elbow with a thermometer glued into it, another elbow into a shotgun condenser into a drip, probably 150 bucks, give or take. Phil Billy has them. A lot of other people carry them. It's all you need. Works well. You can add a deflegmator to it, and it works really well. Um, but yeah, if you got to, just, you know, just use it. If you can't trade it, mix it with, you know, just run it, see what you get, and maybe you could, if you get a column or something, you could save it and strip it, you know, and get some of those bad off flavors out. And you know, some people are just like, well, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not the worst thing you're ever going to drink, probably. If you scorch, you know, it's not as bad as like scorched shit. But I just, you know, or the pellet. You know, some people get that feed that's got like the pellets in it. It's going to be better than pellet food unless it's actually got pellets in it too, which some of the sweet feeds do. That and some of the nutrients and minerals, that's what's in those pellets. I think they got like alfalfa and other minerals mixed in with the pellets and stuff. And it's just, you know, it's not what you want, you know. But ask Peterman, if you know Sean Peterman, ask him about it. He's probably one of the more knowledgeable people as far as grains and feeds and the different feeds and feed grades and all that stuff. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Great guy too. Sweet feed bag, but also have a bag of oats and grains that is molasses. Now, like I said, those are grains and molasses covered. That'll be fine. You can make you a good run with that. So don't worry about those. But the sweet feed, just if you can't trade it with somebody that's got some animals, um, maybe give it to a farmer or see if he's got, you know, maybe some just plain corn that he'll trade. I'm sure some farmer would trade some corn for some sweet feed. How much money does it cost to make a 30-gallon mash? A 30-gallon mash, actually the cheapest way, you know, earlier I said sugar wash is probably the cheapest. Technically, getting sugars from corn and converting is probably one of the cheapest methods of getting sugars, not the easiest. So if you're looking for, and we're not talking about a major difference in cost either. So if you're looking for the cheapest, easiest sugar wash with some nutrients, be sure to use nutrients in any of those washes that don't have grain in them or malts. Um, but yeah, sugar is going to be pretty cheap. Not as cheap as the grain, but then you're going to have to convert. You're going to have to cook the grain. You're going to have to gelatinize the grain. You're going to have to use high-temp amylase on the grain to break down the long chain, carbs, and then you're going to have to let it cool. You can add in some malts to add some beta amylase to further debranch and break down those long chains into fermentable sugars, or you're going to have to add some glucoamylase and break those further down to something the yeast can eat. And then you've got a pretty cheap, for like uh, a 50-pound bag, I think is going to be, you're going to get more sugar out of a 50-pound bag for that 12, 14 bucks you spend on it than the $12 bag of that you spend on a 10-pounder, right? Um, or a 10-pound bag of sugar. I think 70 cents a pound is the cheapest I've seen sugar, and that's probably a beet sugar. So if you're getting a better quality domino, you're going to be a little bit more, closer to $1 a pound. So, it's going to be 10 bucks for that 10 pounds. I think 2 point, Mikey, you remember what our conversion was when we sat down and tried to configure? I think it was like 2.4 or something like that pounds of corn is equivalent to a pound of sugar or something like that. So, you know, it's, I can't remember. Me and Mike, we spent some time one day and worked it all out, figured it all out. And I think corn is definitely cheaper, but it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be more time consuming. So if you're just wanting to get a cheap run in, 30-gallon wash would be probably a sugar wash with some nutrients. But if you want something that's going to be better to drink, definitely move up to the grain and get that sugar through the grain and conversions, and you're definitely going to get a better product, in my opinion. But if you're just going to run it on that column and and just try to make a neutral, either way. But I'd still prefer going the corn. I don't do a lot of sugar washes anymore. Um, Used to, I did a lot of thin mash, which is basically cornmeal, sugar, and water, and that was quick and easy too. Um, but yeah, I think converting a corn and buying some cheap corn, converting it's probably going to be your cheapest and with the best results. It's not going to be the easiest though. Did you copy that chart? I don't know. I know I've got to have it saved because I put it up here, and in order for it to be up here, I have to have it saved. But I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for it. If you got it, let me know. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. Oh, I couldn't select it there. Just say it. Let me look through here real quick and see if I can find this dang chart. Put on my damn glasses so I can see it. It's so damn small. Oh yeah, I can see a lot better now. Make those icons big. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Let me see if I can search for molasses. Find it that way. Okay, nothing there. Yeah, let's see here. I definitely need to add that because that's something that gets talked about a lot. I definitely should have saved that. I know it's got to be on here because I used it. Let me search here for molasses. How the hell is it not finding anything in all of my files? Molasses. Um, okay, so I'm going to dig that back out. I'll have it for next week when we talk about it, and I'll have it saved in this file where I can always go to and pull it out. But what's going on, Jeff? What's up, brother? Chris Palin was telling you don't use the sweet feed, but yeah, yeah, yeah. The other grain jeff's fine. The sweet feed, just trade it if you can. If not, just run it, get rid of it, and give it away to somebody you don't like so well for Christmas. Or maybe it'd be something good to run through a column, or if you just need something to clean up something new you get, that would work as well. Yeah, I think so too. I definitely missed that bell. Let's see what some of this non-select tastes like. I mean, yep, that was the bell. 140. That's about what I just drank. What is that, Jeff? 130. Pretty stout. Maybe 120. Tastes like about 120. Yeah, it's about a 125. About 130, 120 to 130, sure. I've seen, I think it was, who was Phil Billy may have done it. I think Shua did it too, did the donuts. Yeah. Some sake. I'm going to be trying me some rice whiskey here for long. I'll be making some rice wine for too long. I'm going to use that Yellow Angel. I know our buddy Hatley and Brittany are doing it now down in. They've got their mash going, and they're using the Yellow Label Angel yeast on theirs, and they're saying it smells real good and it's working off well. And they didn't, cook or use any amylase or anything. They're just using it like it's supposed to be, and so they're saying so far so good. I think they're like 8 or 9 days in by now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their results are. As soon as it warms up here, I'm going to be doing it. But I'm still getting freaking 48-degree nights and 50-degree days, and it's just let's see what next week's going to look like. I keep looking, and all I see cold temps and fucking rain. And for Sunday low 48, Monday 47, Tuesday 50, 55, 53, 55, high in the 70s. Yeah, just a few weeks out, I guess. We're getting a lot of rain. Rained all day here today. So sake I tasted, the rice wine and the rice whiskey. It is hot. It's hot. What I've tried. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't, just for what little you're saving, as far as cost wise, it's much better at least even using just corn with the amylase, you're going to get better than the sugar. So, adding some of you know, the malted barley and some of the, higher grade stuff that adds some expense to it. And it also has some really good flavors to it. But if you're really, budget conscious and you're really looking for just your best bang for the buck without getting something really hot and bad, I would say just get you a good corn, get a good grain mill it to, a good crack, a good coarse grind. I don't like it powdered, but a good, very coarse grind, almost to where it's just pieces, like a crack, is fine. Or just buy you some good crack corn if it's fresh, and just use that with a high temp amylase. You can get that; it's pretty cheap. Um, I think Philbilly has that. I know North Georgia has it. I think you can get on Amazon. I think North Georgia has it on Amazon. And Firm Solutions here in Kentucky has it. So, it's not expensive, and you use little teeny amounts, so it goes a long way. And the same with the liquid glucose. So, initial cost is going to be up there a little bit because of those 2 jars of the amylase, but you don't use a lot of it. So that it goes a long, long way. I mean, the jar will last you a long time unless you're making a lot of liquor. So, um, just using that and using the proper amounts. Sometimes you can get by with using a little less, especially if you're going to use Michael's talking about using some of your malted grains, which have a lot of these diastatic enzymes in them that are going to take place of some of the high temp amylase and some of the glucose, like a malted barley. If it's a 2 row has a decent diastatic, 6 is going to have more, but generally less flavor. So if you're going to be using a liquid amylase, you can cheat, down and use the 2 row and not worry about diastatic as much, but get some benefit from that diastatic and also use less of the liquid, kind of balance that out, and you'll get a better flavor from like a 2 row than you would from a typical 6, and you'll get a much better, smoother liquor. And then you take your gravity after you do your conversions, and as long as you're 1060 or above, you're good to go. If not, you can invest in a bag of dextrose. Now that's pretty expensive. I think Philbilly's got about as good a price on it as anybody. There are some other places to get it. You can get it on Amazon. Um, don't buy small bags of it though, because it's like expensive as fuck if you buy like a 5 or 10 pound bag. I mean, I buy 50, and it's generally like 80 some bucks on Amazon, usually 80 to 90. I think Philbilly has it cheaper. So if you're close to him and you can get it, pick it up without having it shipped, you definitely, that's the best way to go. Because shipping for him, it increases the cost, and but if you're close enough to him, you can pick it up. Definitely best case scenario. But it doesn't take much just to bump it up from 1060 to 70, or 105 if you don't get a good conversion to 1060 to 70. Doesn't take a lot of dextrose. It really won't hurt your overall flavor a lot at all, or any. Um, Sugar wash, well, I mean, it is 2 pounds per gallon. So if we go the full 2 per gallon and get a 1080, I think, like I said, 70 cents a pound. So it's $1.40 per gallon. So $1.40 times 10, it's going to be 14. And you're going to get more sugar out of a bag of corn for that same 14 than you'll get out of that 10-pound bag of sugar, say. So that's what we were talking about. Um, but it's, that's what you're looking at, plus the cost of some nutrient. You're going to spend about $12 a pound for some DAP on Amazon, diammonium phosphate with urea. You can use Fermax, Fermade, Fermo. There's lots of different nutrients for different applications, specialized, but just good regular old DAP is fine. Um, Again, just like the amylase, very small amounts used, so that bag will last you for a long, long time. And just keep them in a cool, dry place, and you won't have any problems. Keep them for a long time. The amylase I keep in the refrigerator. If I'm going to use some, I just squirt it in a little film canister. What I'm going to use, I'll let that sit out and be warming up. I don't like using it right out of the fridge. Same with the glucose. I'll just put it in a little shot glass or something, just to hold it, warm it up, and then film canister. Probably people use film canister. And a lot of people, what the fuck is film canister, man? A lot of people never fucking use film. But like shot glass or something like that, you can keep it in. But yeah, I still use film canisters to keep a lot of shit in. But yeah, absolutely, Michael. To get a really good flavor, that's where he's going to be graduating to. Let's get him started on cracked corn or corn, and then use the amylase, get used to that, and then we'll graduate to use the malts next, because that's where you really want to work towards is doing an all grain and using conversion, and you'll get some really good, smooth liquor and whiskey, and something really that ages well, real well. Yeah, and you can, yeah, once you get a little bit more advanced, you can start getting some of these malts that are. You have to be careful when you use them. Like some of your chocolate malts and some of your flavored malts, especially smoked malts, they get denatured from the process of making like a chocolate malt, some of the smoked malts and crystal malts, because the heating process will sometimes, well, most often, always denature the enzymes that are in it. So a lot of times those are just used for flavor and not so much for their diastatic power, which, if you're using the liquid along with it, won't matter. You don't need it. You just use your full strength liquid and use any damn malt you want. You don't have to worry about the diastatic from that working. You can go with some of these flavored malts. And, for that matter, he's talking about smoking, a lot of stuff. A lot of times you can smoke what you mash with. You can smoke the cracked corn if you want. You're not dependent on that for any kind of enzyme, so you can smoke that and get a cherry smoked into your crack. Just indirect heat method smoking. Um, Smoked, you can do like a sweet potato mash, works real well. Smoking some of your sweet potatoes like that. A lot of interesting things you can do once you get the basics down and start getting into intermediate. It's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of experimentation and a lot of fun. Well, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Feed it to them. Yeah, yeah, I would. If they like it and they can eat it, yeah, feed it to them. Let them eat that, and just get you some good old crack or some whole kernel. I prefer whole kernel because I've got a meal now, and I really like getting the whole kernel corn and yellow dent number 2 and just cracking it up. And a lot of people, say, what should I get, deer corn or regular corn? It's all the same. There's no such thing as deer corn. That's just the way the bag's labeled. A lot of times in the deer corns, they will add additives to attractants and things like that to attract the deer and to get them to like it and taste. And they'll add flavors in there that you might not want with your with distilling, but pretty much if it doesn't have those, always check your ingredients. Always check the ingredients. You just want to get a bag of corn kernels, um, and sometimes on those kernels they'll put a Sean Peterman. I was listening to him the other night talking about it. They'll put an antioxidant on there, and it's just like an oil coating to help keep it fresh and looking yellow and bright and good. But that's not necessarily gonna work well when you're distilling it over either. So just try to find a good quality yellow dent that's not been treated and doesn't have anything poured over it for to help keep it longer. I guess they do the same thing to a lot of other foods and stuff that we eat to try to keep them looking a little more presentable. Meat's red and all that kind of stuff. But just a good old yellow dent, crack it to a coarse grind and run that and get used to that. Then work your way up into all grains and start experiment with malts and smoking some malts and smoking some of your grains and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Is food grade white vinegar 50-50 and water good for the first cleaning run on a new still cleaning run, or do I do? Uh, James, is this a copper still? And you're talking about cleaning copper? Oh, did I miss Ray? Somebody said it's a birthday. Happy birthday, Ray. I'm sorry if I missed your post. I'm scrolling back. I don't see it. Happy birthday, brother. So yeah, the sugar wash, yeah. 25-pound bags for $20. Yeah, 80 for 50. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah. Did you use your eggshells? Was it what did it start out really basic or high pH or what? Or did it crash? Yeah, I love converting the grains, definitely. And Anthony, we'll definitely, brother. We want you to start out just with the cracked corn. So make your list here. Cracked corn, high temp, liquid, high temp, alpha, amylase, and liquid glucose. So, and use about 2.5 pounds of the corn per gallon of water. If you see a lot of cob in there, maybe bump it up a little bit to 3 pounds. And I think 2.5 will get you about where you need to be, about 2.5 pounds of corn per gallon of water. And the best way to do it is boil about 3/4 of the water that you're going to use. So if you're going to do 30 gallons of water, do 3/4 of that. I have to, so about, how in the hell do you 30 times 0.75? Right, about 22.5 gallons. Start out with, so if you know you're going to use 30 times 2.5, no, that's 75. So let's see, 50 divided by 2.5, so that's 20 gallons. For 2.5 pounds per gallon, a 50-pound bag of cracked corn will do 20 gallons. So 20 times 0.75, 3/4 of that will be 15. So start with 15 gallons of water and boil it and get it to a rolling boil. Now, if you have a cooler that can hold more than 20 gallons, like 30 or 40-gallon cooler, perfect. If you've got a drum, you can wrap it up in blankets, whatever, but you want it to hold this temperature. So we're going to try the steep method so you don't scorch the shit out of it like I used to. But so you get you crack your 50-pound bag of crack, and you got to have your drill with a mud mixer, a long mud mixer that you use for drywall mud and mixing, concrete and mud and that kind of thing. It's a little different than a paint mixer. Both will work, but I think that mud mixer is a little heavier duty. But good 3/4 inch drill, or a half. I wouldn't pull with a 3/8, especially if you got a good one. I wouldn't use a good drill on it. Get you a cheapo at Harbor Freight, 1/2 inch with the little handle. Anyway, throw your corn in there and then pour that 15 gallons of boiling water over that corn. Stir the shit out of it, and you can keep its temperature. Get your thermometer in there. That's really the best time to use a thermometer, is when you're converting, so you know what temperatures to add. And we're going to pull up a chart here so we can show you this. Hopefully you can see that well on your phone. I don't know how big that is if you're looking at a phone, but so anyway, with your corn here, waxy corn, we're going to be all the way up here, man. We're boiling the shit out of it. We're going to be way up here. We don't care about this upper limits because we're not going to try to use any amylase that may be in that corn. So we're just gonna boil the shit out of the water. We're gonna pour it on top of that corn. We're gonna stir it. We're gonna let it sit there. We're gonna put a thermometer in there and write all this down. And when it gets down to like 180, start adding more water into it, stir it. It's going to get thick as shit. That's part of the gelatinization process. It's going to get really thick. That's why you want a good drill that can handle the torque, because it's like mixing mud. It's like mixing drywall mud. It gets thick. So, just keep adding, slowly adding water just to keep the temp 190 up for an hour and a half. Once you get to about an hour and a half, your corn should be gelatinized if it was pretty decent corn. Once it's gelatinized, you know, dump in the rest of your water if you want to, and go ahead and stir it up real good, and add your high temp alpha amylase. Um, Once you add that and you stir that in, you'll immediately noticing it starting to get thinner. It'll start getting sloshy, and that's called hydrolyzing. It's basically scarification, and you're converting all those gelatinized. When it gelatinizes, it's just freeing all those starches from the corn. Basically, starch is just an endosperm for the corn that's giving the corn kernel energy to grow, to put that sprout out. Before that sprout starts getting energy from the sun, it relies on the energy from the actual endosperm, which is the starches that are in that corn kernel. So yeah, you're drinking sperm when you drink whiskey. You're fermenting corn sperm. That's comforting. But anyway, you stir that all up good. Let it cool off, and then when it gets to around 150, right here, you can see around the 155 range, your barley malt. If you're going to add malt, this is right here, the upper limits. This is where you want to add it. Any beyond this will denature the enzymes in it. So if you're going to be adding some barley malt or some wheat or some rye, this is the upper levels. These are the temperatures that you want. Rice, for the rice is way up here. So short grain, long grain here. So you really have to know your rice. But this is a good chart that'll help you. So once your corn gets into this green, you can do a rest. A lot of beer makers do a protein rest and saccharification rest range. So in this, you don't want to use a chiller. You want it to kind of spend some time in this green range, and that'll help a lot of those sugars get converted as well. And it's just so happens this barley and the wheat, especially like a malted wheat, fall right in this range here. And if even if you're not adding barley, you can let it rest at this in this range here, between 155 and 145, and to help your sugars get broken down properly. And then if you're not using any malted grains, you're just using the corn and the high temp, we'll let it cool on down to 100, past 100 into about a 90 to 95 range. Then depending on the yeast that you're using, but like your data yeast or most grain yeast or whiskey yeast, you're going to be able to pitch those in at 90 to 95, and right along with your liquid glucose. Now, if you do a starch conversion thing, you're going to see that you got a lot of starch conversion, but all your sugars aren't fermentable sugars yet, because that glucose that you put in along with the yeast, or you can put it in like now and put the yeast in tomorrow, and get a gravity reading to see if you need to add sugar, which isn't a bad idea, especially for your first time and if you're not following a specific recipe. So just just put in that liquid glucose, stir it in real well, let it sit for 24-hour period. Then come in and take your gravity reading. When you take your gravity reading, you want to get liquid out of there. You don't want to just drop it in with all all the grains and everything floating around. That will affect your reading. So we're just going to skim. I like setting my skimmer, that little strainer I was talking about with the screen earlier. I set it down in there, and I can scoop little cupfuls of strained liquid off and put that in my graduated cylinder and check my gravity there. And if you got a good conversion, it'll tell you pretty much what your starting gravity is, and that liquid glucose, but it will continue to work. So give it 24. It'll do quite a bit, and it'll give you a pretty good reading on what your starting gravity is, and if you need to, if you got a good conversion, or if you need to add a little glucose or dextrose, I'm sorry, which is basically glucose. You can add that dextrose into it and cheat it up a little bit to where you want to be, and then dump your yeast in, and you're ready to ferment. That's about the easiest way, just to do like a cracked corn. And if you follow those instructions to the T, you'll end up with a pretty decent. Now, if if you want to, you can also, if you have like a old box of bran flakes and you got that real powdery stuff at the bottom, if it's a smaller mash, I mean, you can smash up some bran flakes and throw them in there. Those make a pretty good yeast nutrient. If you've got some old sediments from a prior yeast bed or something like that, you can boil that, and that'll make a good, nutrient as well. But sometimes with just plain corn, especially if it's not got any malts in it, a little bit of nutrient wouldn't hurt. But if you're using any kind of malts at all, you definitely don't need any nutrients. It's got plenty. It's got more than enough once you throw in a little malts, and it's not bad to use a little bit of malted barley just for nutrients if you wanted to. It definitely doesn't hurt, and it won't hurt your flavor. That's 100% sure about that. I do too, man. I enjoy converting the grains, and it's just, you have to love what you do. If not, it's a fucking chore. It's a job. If you don't love it, it's just work. But if you enjoy doing it, it's a hobby. It's fun, and try to keep it that way. It's enjoyable. Um, the chart I was talking about is its grades of molasses. 13-gallon still. Well, in a 13-gallon still, you're probably going to run about 9 or 10 gallons. You don't want to get any more than that, or you're going to bubble over. If it's 13 football, it's got a sloped cap on it, so you don't get as much foam getting puked into it. So, but with a 13-gallon still, you're going to run about 9 or 10 gallons. 10 gallons you're going to get, depends on, when you do your gravity, it'll tell you how much potential alcohol you have in it. So if you have 10% alcohol and you've got 10 gallons, you've got 1 gallon of alcohol in all that mash. You're not going to get all that out, and what you do get out, a lot of it's going to be mixed with water. So it's actually going to be, more than a gallon, because you're going to have it mixed with water. So out of a 10-gallon, mash, you can expect proof down to like 100. You can expect, and it just really depends on the mash and how well you got a conversion, and how far you distill off, and how far you go into the tails. So out of a 10-gallon, you're probably going to get a gallon and a half of good drinkable liquor, in the hearts. Um, Maybe up to 2 if it's proofed down a little further and it's really efficient, or you get a good conversion. But um, it varies so much. It's really tough to tell, but that's generally speaking about what you're going to get if you don't really go too far into the tails and you make good cuts and proof down to 100. Yeah, about that. Yeah, I agree. No, I'm in Lexington, brother. Did you live in Salisbury? I grew up Pike County. That's where I'm from, Pike County. Yeah, it's all about the grades. There's a lot of different grades. I'm sure the shit I was drinking was probably pretty bottom shelf sake. Um, yeah, you can get corn at Bucky's. Got a real good deal on it. So if you got a Bucky's close by, I know Tractor Supply is like 10, 12, or 12 to 14 range, depending. Um, what's the other one? Tractor Supply and What's the other one that's I've got two here? There's one at Georgetown and one in Nicholasville. I think Nicholasville has the Tractor Supply, and Georgetown has the what's the other one? It's a lot like Tractor Supply. They're about the same store, about the same price, and about the same quality. It's just yellow dent, yellow dent. All right, Craig. I appreciate you hollering at me, brother, on the chat. We got it back up and running. Have a good one, brother. Sorry I missed that. That was 27 minutes ago, so I gotta get caught up. In Oregon, waiting for blackberries. Yes, sir. I am too. They're coming in soon here. So are blueberries. Yeah, I enjoy doing it all, but it does tend to become a job. What's going on, Apple Rye? Brother, I don't usually add a lot of people on here. I generally try to make it more like a classwork and stuff. If there might be some days I'll add somebody in if we don't have a lot of questions or something like that. I appreciate you, brother. A lot of you don't know that's Apple Rye. Quite the character. He makes pretty decent liquor himself. Yeah, yeah. You can definitely do a lot of fun things once you start learning and getting the basics down. Um, you can absolutely start having some fun with it. Absolutely. Yeah, you gotta if you don't, you don't have any you don't get no alcohol with you. You gotta break them down, brothers. What's up, Dave? Good to have you in here, bro. 7.4 to start. Yeah, that's what I was looking for the answer to that. So that's pretty basic. Using citric acid also. Um, so I guess maybe they put some kind of I know that there's a lot when I mix water with a lot of rice, I get a lot of powder. So I don't know if that's something that they put there to preserve it. I know that a lot of them talked about a polished rice, and it probably won't have all that powder on it. But yeah, I use damn, is that a tell me it's a mayfly, not a big fucking wasp. Damn, that's huge, man. No, it ain't no mosquito. That's massive, man. It's fucking Ozzy Osbourne flying around. Did y'all see that? It's huge. Um, had to be a mayfly though. Yeah, the small handful. I use oyster shells, Richard. You can get them at Tractor Supply. They're like $14 for a 45-pound bag. I use it growing my vegetables and stuff. It's great for chickens too. If you have chickens for their eggs, crush them up, boil them, make sure you get any kind of bacteria, any salts or anything that might be trapped in them out. I crush them up to about that big, and I just tie them up in a little pouch of cheesecloth and throw them in at the very beginning to help buffer, um, but to bring it down. You want to do that as you're converting because having that low pH actually benefits in the conversion too. But yeah, using citric acid is absolutely the way you want to go. If you got citric acid, it's definitely good to keep around for cleaning purposes for that purpose as well. So and also for using for your inverted sugar if you want to decide to make some inverted sugar, you're going to need some sort of acid, and citric acid definitely fits the bill for that as well. So it's very handy to keep and definitely what you want to use to lower your pH. 5.4 is perfect, and I look forward to hearing the results. 50 pounds of crack. I thought this was a distilling group. Well, of course, you don't like cracked corn? Got to make the mash before we distill. So we talk about mashing and distilling. If we just talk about distilling, it's boring because we gotta talk about what it takes to get there, man. But yeah, cracked corn is definitely a good old way of getting you some corn liquor, man. And definitely what I recommend to people just getting started, so they don't have a bunch of money in an heirloom and and barleys and specialty malts and all that stuff. So we were talking to somebody that's just getting started. Damn, that thing's huge. I hope that's not like a fucking wasp. So we were talking to somebody just getting started out, brother. So yeah, cracked corn is perfect for it, man. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Paint mixtures don't oxidize. You're right. And you really want to mix it up to the point where you're chopping it and oxidizing. And man, I'm praying that's a big mayfly. Look at that. Can y'all see this? No. Hope he flies over here in front of the damn camera, man. It's huge. But there's always just something flying, give me the heebies. Um, so yeah, the mud mixers, they pull up and you can reverse your drill and make it go the other way, but they tend to chop up. I guess if you wanted to, you could kind of sharpen those side pieces of metal that come down on each side to give it stiffness, to help chop up fruits and stuff and things like that. But it really helps oxidize things. Whereas like a paint stir is designed not to create bubbles. I want to make bubbles. I want to get it heavily oxygenated. I want to churn the shit out of it. So good point. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You guys are on it. I'm just scrolling down to see this. I'm missing all this. So I'm going to try to get ahead. Um, yeah, yeah, they are. And you can get the stainless steel grade ones. Man, I might have to kill that thing. I know they do good. Oh, it's in the lamp now. It's history. Stainless steel would be awesome. I do think some of the ones that you get might be like maybe nickel plated, or I mean, I definitely wouldn't use one that's like galvanized. I wouldn't buy one galvanized. I think some of them are nickel plated, and I think some of them, are just steel. I don't use the ones that are painted black. The ones I got were um, just look like steel. And they get a little bit of rust on it, but that's not going to hurt anything. I mean, that's not going to distill over, and it's very small. I keep it clean, but yeah, if you can find one that's stainless, definitely best case for sure. I don't sell, brother. I make for a hobby. I give it to my friends. We all sit around, drink it, take it to festivals, and give it to my brothers, and just have fun with it. Um, been known to sell a little bit of wine. I do make wine too. Make a lot of wine and champagnes. I make a strawberry champagne. I sell some of those. Actually, I do a lot of trading with those as well to get more wine bottles to make more, put more wine in. But yeah, I don't sell. And on we're really not able to talk about selling on Facebook or on YouTube and all that. So even if I did, I couldn't talk about it because we don't want to get banned. So that's in the groups. It's kind of a big no. So um, yeah. Hey, what, am I missing some of the chat? Hagar, that as well. Hey, I'm missing some things here. I'm not seeing that. Yeah, absolutely. If you can't get dextrose, corn syrup works just well. Yeah, works great. I appreciate you, brother. What's going on, Bane? What's up, brother? Yeah, Rural King. Thank you. I am behind. That's what it is. I got a tractor supply in Nicholasville and a Rural King in Georgetown, and they're both pretty much the same. But you can get a better deal at Buggies for sure right now on your corn, and that's in Richmond. So I'm gonna have to drive to Richmond and load up on some corn here for too long. But I'm again waiting for it to warm up a little bit. Hey, good. There we go. Did I miss one of your posts from prior? I don't see anything that you posted prior, but oh, there it is. Okay, you were talking about the relaxing point. All right, brother. I'm a little bit behind, and I apologize, but I want to try to answer each question as I come to them, and get all the way through the answer. Uh, Appreciate you, brother. And hey, when you get your corn, come back in here, and we can take you step by step through every bit of it. So um, you don't scorch anything. We're going to get you steeping off the bat, and getting you going, getting you conversions down, and shit, man, you'll be making top shelf bourbon and whiskey before you know it, brother. Yeah, sake's a wine. Um, Sake's the wine. I mean, I guess you could kind of freeze distill it, if you wanted to do it without running it through a distiller. I guess a sake jack, like an apple jack. Um, Kind of freeze the water out of the wine to fortify it and make it a higher proof. That's an old method of bumping up the proof out of some wine. The sake is just your wine, but it's really strong for a wine. It can get pretty high proof for a wine, but it's still just a wine. The fermented and distilled, um, what do they call that? I'm about to Google it. I can't remember what that Japanese. Shoshu, Shoshu. I'm sure I'm butchering that pronunciation, but that's what they call it. Socchu. I'm sorry, Shocchu is the distilled sake. So it's Shoshu. I don't know, how do they pronounce that shit. Maybe I can get Alexa to tell me one of these days. But yeah, it's hot. It tastes hot, unless it's really good. I guess, like he's saying, you get some top shelf. I'm sure there's ways that mix it with oats or something like that might smooth it up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, eggshells work too, brother. I mean, that's calcium carbonate just the same, except they're nasty. You gotta really boil and wash the shit out of them. A lot of people bake them. I save them and use them for plants, but I used to. But now that I'm doing the oyster shell things, and they're so damn cheap, and I don't have that smelly bag of eggshells underneath the sink. Yeah, my fiance really wasn't too fond of that anyway. So with that, now we just use oyster shells. But she puts up with me, bless her heart. Yeah, I boil mine. Yeah, I boil them. Eggshells or oyster shells. Crush them. I like getting the salt, and I want to make sure there's no bacteria because you know I like a nice clean fermentation. I don't want any kind of surprises or off flavors. You're welcome, brother. Hey, we're glad to have you here, man. 4 years, you help answer some questions a lot, man. I like having you in here, man. Definitely. And you seem to know what you're talking about. So welcome to the group, brother. Glad to have you with us. I do too, man. It's a lot of fun. That's what that's what I've done for the last, I guess, 10 years. I've been focused on. My first 30 years in distilling was pretty much all grains. And I started out with, thin mash, cornmeal, sugar, and water and bread yeast. That's all I could afford. That's all you can get back in the 70s. Um, but as time progressed and I learned more, and the internet came about, and started getting into the news groups, and GeoCities had some distilling groups back in the day in the 90s. Learned a lot then as well. Learned a lot in college, chemistry and biology and stuff. And asking a lot of questions. I know the teacher's like, I know what you're doing, but learning a lot that way, and anything that I learned, I always kind of angled it towards making distillates and moonshines, and but the last 10 years I've been focused on a lot of wines and brandies that I didn't do in the past, and infusing flavors and post flavoring, and something that's new to me as well that I really didn't do a lot. I mean, I was a bartender at one time, um, bartender bouncer at a country bar. We didn't do a lot of mixed drinks, but what we did do, it was fairly basic and simple. Wasn't a lot of people coming in wanting Manhattans in a country bar, So um, it was fairly cut and dry and easy. So I learned a little bit about mixology there, but never was real big on post flavoring. But that seems to be where the demand is now. A lot of people want that. They like it. They want that apple pie. They want that cherry bounce and post flavored stuff with a lot of flavors in it. So that's great. Each to each their own. Um, like cherry over oak. Yeah. Um, actually, if you're just using chips, not very long at all, and not much at all, because the more you put in, the more tannins you're going to leach out, and the less character of the wood you're going to get. You're just going to get tannins, and it just gets bitter and woody, and you're not really getting a lot of character from the wood. So the spirals work pretty well, and the bigger chips, I use staves. So I might be pulling a little bit of flavor from the whiskey that was once in there out. I also char the sides of the stave and the back of the stave, and just char it all the way around. Um, and I use those. But you just have to kind of go by taste and color. Once you use it a few times, you're going to get less color, but sometimes you can still pull some good taste, because you're going to kind of leach a lot of your tannins out early on. And if you continue to use them, you're not going to get those tannins that give you a lot of color, but you can still pull some flavor. But after that's pretty much said and done, you're pretty much just going to use them for smoking your meats, after that, which is also good, once you get it soaked and all that goodness. Um, so I use barrel staves, and I'll get about 3 or 4 good uses out of them, and then I pitch them, or just use them for smoking. Um, the barrels work great. You really can't replace a good slow aging process that you're going to get with the barrel. Like your Badmos or your Sandman barrels like these. Um, that's going to be a 2-year job. This is when I got all the autographs from one of the Maggie, I think it was a couple of years ago. I signed it, and everybody signed it, and I think they were given to a fan, and then they donated it. Um, no, I think Damon might have had that. Damon had that, and he got it all autographed by everybody, and then he put it up in an auction for a charity, and I bought it at auction. But yeah, those barrels are for like two. They basically mimic a full size barrel as far as time. So it's going to take the full term to use those as it would be if you were using a full size 53-gallon barrel. So you're looking at anywhere for 2 to 4 years to get a decent distillate out of it. So it's going to take a while. If you use a smaller barrel, the smaller the barrels get, the more surface area you're going to get. So when you do that, it's going to take much less time. So like some of these 1 to 5 gallon barrels, we're talking months, and maybe some of the smallest barrels even weeks. So like a 1 gallon barrel, I mean, yeah, after a couple of weeks, you need to be chasing it, tasting it. You can over oak real easy. Um, oh, for the blackberries, for the bird shit. Yeah, yeah. I always, anytime I do any kind of brandies or would you consider a white rice amylase conversion sake? How do you think it would taste? White rice amylase conversion. Um, yeah, I mean, you're going to want to use the alpha and the glucose, just like with any starches. But is there specific amylase that, that they make, or specific enzymes that the Japanese use as a specialty? But I know that, like just a regular high temp alpha will work, and the glucose will work. Or if you actually wanted to, at the right temperature, add you some barley malt in there, those add some flavor to it for sure. But I'm sure there's probably some, because I know like the yellow labels what I'm going to use, and that's got some of the enzymes built into it. If that's what you're talking about, the yellow label has everything in it. So I'm just going to basically put rice in some water at 90 degrees, and I'm going to add the yeast. That's it. I'm going to throw in some nutrients, and I'm just going to throw in the yeast. So we'll definitely see how that works out, because it's the yellow label now. And that supposedly has all of the enzymes, and they've got some kind of fungus that works as an enzyme as well. I'm not sure if it's adobe or what, but it's a specific enzyme that breaks it down as it ferments. So you're not going to know right off the beginning what kind of conversion it does, because it just takes place over a long period of time. It does take longer. We were talking earlier, Michael Hatley and Brittany are doing some of that right now, but they're doing it first with grains, and I'm going to try it with grains and rice. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that they made the yellow label angel yeast for specifically for that rice, so you don't have to use the amylase and all that stuff. Let's see. And on the blackberries, the bird shit, oh yeah. Yeah, anytime I do any kind of fruits or anything like that, I always dump I wash it. I definitely wash it by hand. Um, well, I can't say I wash it. I've got my helping hands that does a lot of the washing for me. And and she hands it over to me, and I'll do the smashing. But I'll add 160 plus degree water to it and let it steep in that for the waters, or I'll use juice and heat the juice up to that temperature if I'm just using juice and not using water, to kill kill any kind of bacteria or wild yeast that are on there. That's awesome, brother. Hey, now don't get paralysis from over analysis. That's what I tend to try to do. So I like to read and learn and spend so much time thinking and not enough time doing. Sometimes you just got to learn from some mistakes and then come back Wednesday or Saturday and say, "Oh hell, I messed up." Yeah, I'm starting to do a little few food. I'm doing the apple pie, if you consider that. I'm going to try to experiment a little bit with that, and I make a pretty decent root beer. Um, but probably grappa is one of the best things I've made with as far as the brandies and stuff. Lactobacillus, awesome. Well, that can be a blessing or a curse, brother. So if it happens late in fermentation, it's a blessing, or it can be a blessing. Some people don't like it at all, but it can be a blessing. You just got to wait it out. If it happens early, though, a lot of times, if it happens right at the beginning of your fermentation, um, your lacto will compete with your yeast for sugars, and you won't get as much alcohol because the lacto sometimes will consume as much yeast or sugars as the yeast does, and you just won't get a lot of you won't get a lot of yeast converting sugars into alcohol for you. So lacto is something you generally want to come in later. I've heard some people have it come in early, and then they kind of heat things up and kill it off, and then add sugar. That's kind of a backwards way to do it, but I guess if it comes in early and you're able to do that, then I guess it's okay. But it's something I've never tried, and I doubt I would. But once you get lacto, you really need to clean up your vessel before you distill or before you ferment the next time, because it will hang around. And if you don't use star sand or something, don't use bleach. Find some star sand or a good Dawn and scrub, and use some really hot water in there, and that'll kill it off. Um, but get it out of there, because you really don't want it at the beginning. Um, if you get it, you can also skim some off and save it in a jar and add it late in the fermentation if you get to the point where you really like the taste of it and you like what it brings. Um, some people do, some people don't. Just an opinion thing. Um, but it kind of makes it creamier, adds some fruity notes sometimes. So it's not all bad, but let it run its course. If you've got it, let it finish running its course. Sometimes you'll go through some odd smells, some off odors. That's not usually the puke odor you get. That's a butyric acid and not a lactic acid. But yeah, you just let it run its course, and it'll soften it up and give it some fruity notes. Sometimes not so bad, but you can add it late in fermentations too, but just be sure to clean it all up. You don't want it at the beginning. Am I going to shine what? What? Like, oh, you talking about the lacto, or that's a really cheap shine if you distill it? What are we talking about? One guy I watched on making sake did a process of using two types of yeast, one to kick it and start it, and one type of yeast to finish it off. Cool. A lot of times when people use two yeast like that, um, they'll start with a wild yeast. Wild yeast can go really hard, but they go for a short period of time and can give good flavors or bad flavors. But if you've got a specific wild yeast that you've grown, then you can use it. And this is would be one of the ways to use it. That way you don't have yeast competing, but use your wild yeast first. They'll work off, and a lot of times they don't have a good alcohol tolerance or a pH tolerance. So some of these things will generally kill them off quickly, and so they work and die quick. And then you finish it with a different wine yeast or something like that to get your alcohol on up. And I'm sure those yeasts can consume some of those dead wild yeasts for nutrients if you don't have enough in there to begin with. So you're not a big favor of sake or root beer. Yeah, you definitely don't want to try my root beer shine. Then it's very sassy frassy. What's that toxin in sassafras? There's supposedly a toxin in sassafras. I'm trying to think what the name of it is. I know anonymous is from the pawpaws. What's the sassafras one? Fucking forgetting everything I ever learned, man. Saffron. Where's my mind? I mean, I can't remember shit. It's killing me. But yeah, I think this whole saffron thing. I think they did that because it's actually used in making some drug manufacturing. So I think they kind of scared everybody away from that. And a lot of the root beer that you see today doesn't have sassafras in it. They don't recommend sassafras tea because of the saffron. But I think they use that saffron to make a pretty, yeah, some drugs or something. Yeah, definitely don't want sweet feed pellets. No, sir. Any feed with pellets in it, just say no. I'm still trying to figure out. Make shine with what? Definitely don't want that. And yeah, saffron. I don't remember what drug it is. I'm gonna have to check that out. Let's see. MDA, MDMA. So yeah, it's saffron is commonly used by clandestine laboratories to synthesize various drugs such as MDA, MDMA, and MDEA, which therefore the sale of saffron or sassafras oil is monitored by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. And while you won't see a lot of it for sale or used a lot in modern root beer making. But yeah, that MDMA is some trippy stuff, man. Friend told me some trippy stuff, according to them, according to friends. All right, come on, man. Don't leave me hanging, Richard. Are you going to shine that? That's a really cheap shine if you distill it. What are we talking about? Are you talking about the Angel yellow label with rice? I'm just experimenting with that. Yeah, it's. I'm definitely going to run it. I mean, that's why the Chinese or Japanese or whoever developed that yellow label angel yeast was for making, I guess, sake wine without converting it, and so I'm definitely going to give it a shot. Is that what you were talking about? Thanks. I was saying it. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, or it could impart some interesting flavors because a lot of times, if the specific wild yeast, that's one of the drawbacks from it. I mean, you find you a good wild yeast and it imparts good flavors, but you only get like a 5% alcohol out of it before it dies, and then it's like you still have a lot of fermentable sugars left, but it can't ferment them, and you're sitting there with a sweet 5% beer, basically. Um, so what do? You add more yeast and get more alcohol and dry it up a little bit, or you have it, you distill a low alcohol sweet beer. I guess so. That's probably why they're doing that with adding the other yeast in it to finish it off dry, or at least finish it off. Yeah, makes sense. And I think the yellow label, I think it actually has several different things going on in it as well. I think there's some specific enzyme. I know I've heard mention of Gobi. Maybe I can do a little more research on it. Um, but I got it for $25 for a 500 gram brick. I see on eBay right here, 500 gram for $21. I'm not sure if that's free shipping or not, but that's a pretty good, damn good price. You want me to look that up? Actually, let's see if that's free shipping on eBay. If so, that's a really good price. Nope, shipping 250. Still 25. That's about what I got it for on Amazon, free shipping. So 20, 24, 26. Yeah, that's about the same price as I got it on sale on Amazon. So that's still a great. But this is shipping from China for 21. So yeah, if you buy it now, you'll get it by June 26th. So if you're patient, I'm not that fucking patient. Let's see. This other one ships from China as well, July even. Wow. So yeah, get it off Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. For 35. Hell, I'm not gonna wait 2 months, save $10. But I did get it on sale for 25, so I guess that is the best free shipping. So that was awesome. But let me see if I can find some place here that's got some kind of scientific. And it's something good to read up, guys. You definitely want to, because it's definitely, if it converts grains like it does, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to recommend maybe for beginners that just want to get into it and get some decent taste and stuff. If it tastes good and it converts well, um, koji, yeah, it's a pure koji maybe. I think I said goji, and this is koji. Interesting, but that's just their guess. So I need to find something a little more specific, something scientific. I have to research that. I've done a little bit on it, but I've not. I think koji is what I've read before. Michael, tell me, brother, would you consider a white rice amylase conversion sake? How do you think it would taste? Um, Tell me what it is. You're not gonna piss me off, man. I'm not gonna get mad. I promise. You have to really say some heavy shit to piss me off. Well, did you use the amylase to convert the starches, Steve? Oh no, no, it means it was done. Oh, so it started out as a six. No, yeah. Well, we all learn one way or the other, hard way or easy way. But I do find it interesting that it's got like rice here. Let me. It doesn't say what the star's about, but it's got like rice here in such a wide range, and then it's got short grain and then long grain, and then I'm not a big rice aficionado, so I don't know a lot about rices, but I do know they were talking about some polished rice and some short rice and some long rice and using a combination. So yeah, definitely gonna have to learn more about rice, how much and what type, because like I say, if you're using that yellow label, it's not like you're immediately converting it and checking it with your gravity, right? Or with starch. I'm sorry, with iodine to check your starches. Um, so it's nothing that you can immediately check because this is conversions that go on as it's fermenting. You know, it's fermenting and eating the starches at the same time. So it's converting starches and eating starches all at the same time, which kind of happens when you're using glucoamylase um, at the same time you pitch the yeast instead of waiting like we talked earlier, the 24-hour period. So if you add the liquid glucose and the yeast at the same time, you're going to be converting and eating at the same time, which isn't a problem. But it's I like waiting, 24 hours so I can get a better idea of what my starting gravity is going to be and what I can expect. Things I saw is that the long fat rice is better for all the starches, and that the short starch or the short rice was really low on starches. Good to know, brother. I appreciate it. So, hey, we're all helping each other here. I don't know a lot about the rice grains, so that's something that I want to, dedicate a little bit of reading time to, and might have to get up with Steve and talk to him about it. 'Cause I really don't know a lot about the different rices and all that stuff. Maybe I can find one of them cute little girls on Twitch. Tell me about rice. So I wait for the girls to go upstairs when I talk like that. She's probably watching this upstairs steaming right now. Brown supposedly high. Good to know. Well, maybe we'll have a rice episode when I get closer to doing this. Maybe we can all kind of have an episode on focus on rice. Still answer normal questions, but maybe we can all brainstorm and do some reading up on it, and learn about it. I've got this chart here. It's in the militia under the files. So if anybody needs it, I will also have 100%. Wait a minute. Let me see. I might have put that. Let me see. This is good. I might have put that chart for the. Damn it! No, I didn't. I did put the templates in there though. For those of you that want the templates for a 12-gallon, you can also scale those up to any size you want to increase the size of the pot. It's a little copper pot template, and there's also a little PDF in here called the pot steel. And this is the Moonshine Militia at the very top of the page. You'll see where it says discussion, featured members, events, media, and files. Just go to files and it should be there. It's got some mash bills for a lot of the top liquors and stuff that's interesting for guys that are into converting and trying to imitate, the top shelf stuff. We got the mash bills that they use, so what percentage grains to start with. It'll get you pretty close, in the barrel and age, but definitely going to take that barreling and aging. I put a lot of files in here. JB Wagon Maker, great guy. He's put a lot of files in here as well. A lot of good files, but I've got to add more, and going to be adding more to this file section as I can. So definitely be expecting to see more. And I'm going to add that yeast or that wait a minute, the molasses chart to it. Let's see. The molasses chart to it. So we'll know more about the different grades. But the Golden Barrel basically, and the Caribbean Black Pearl, a lot of those are basically a C grade, which is what most people make cookies and bake with and stuff, which is a perfectly good food grade. Retains sweetness. Not the highest grade, but economical, and probably one of the best ones to distill with, because somebody asked if you wanted to use the highest grade, and I think you'd be spending a lot of money on nothing. But if you wanted to convert some of those unconverted sugars from the molasses, you can use something called invertase, and that's something that a lot of pastry chefs use to liquefy a fondant. Basically, a fondant is a hard sugar that they used in making. If you ever just watch these bake-offs where they have a lot of things that are like sculpted and look like, wow, how do you make that? They make a fondant where a sugar actually hardens, kind of like icing, but even harder, and it kind of hardens. And if it's fondue, that's cheese. This is fondant, and anyway, they use this invertase to, you can liquefy this fondant and take it back to a sugar. And you could probably also, I think you could use it to make an inverted sugar, but it'd be an expensive route to do that when all it takes is cooking or heating it up to 236 degrees and using citric acid and water to break that glycosidic bond. But yeah, we're going to have to definitely read up on our starches and our rice starch and figure out which is the best, like the long grains, maybe the, dark, wild, long grain rice might be the best, brown long grain. Um, so that's definitely going to be something I'm going to be reading up on for sure. Yeah, I know, man. I usually go to do a little Taco Bell run late night, but not on the Saturday nights. We used to do that on our Friday nights. We do a Friday night shit show on here. I don't know if you guys see it or not. We don't put it on the Fieldbilly YouTube channel. We put it on the Militia channel on YouTube though, and it's just we talk a little bit about everything. Sometimes we'll talk about shine. Sometimes we'll talk about what's going on in the world today. Sometimes we'll just give each other a hard time and mess with each other and get drunk and laugh. But it's a good time too. But yeah, it's after the shit show, I usually go get me a little Taco Bell run about 11 on a Friday night. But as you get older, man, you wake up at 3 a.m. You have to take that antacid pill because it's tearing you up. So those days, I don't know, they may be coming to an end soon. But yeah, that fondant stuff's it's real hard. They make it like it's not like a rock candy or nothing hard, but it's like icing, but it's just like it's stale and hard. And they make it that way to sculpt some of this shit that they use. And I guess when they want to soften it up, they use that invertase on it. But that invertase works on a lot of things. It's not real cheap, and it's not very commonly used. But there's a lot of different enzymes like xylanase. You know, there's a lot of different enzymes that a lot of people don't use that actually could be taken advantage of, but it's just not commercially viable or really needed. But there's a lot of enzymes out there that will do a little more converting, but at the same time, you're probably, getting some other things converted that you may not want, and then you're going to end up creating more fours, like when you use pectic enzymes, which basically doesn't convert so much. It just it converts cellulose, and it eats the cell in a lot of the fruits and stuff, and it breaks open the cells so all the sugars and stuff can get out of the shell, out of that cell. But freezing a lot of times will help you do that. So maybe freezing and using half the pectic enzymes is normal. And also, to the guy that was talking earlier about reusing feints, if you're using a lot of pectic enzymes and you're doing a lot of fruits, that's another time that you probably shouldn't. I wasn't thinking about it then, but if you use a lot of pectic enzymes and you're doing fruit, probably not a good idea um, to continue to reprocess those heads and tails and fours. But like in a regular grain or a sugar wash or something like that, or a tequila or anything like that, you're not going to get those levels where it's going to be a problem. But if you do have a very cellulosic, I guess, fruit like a peach or an apple that has a lot of cells that you're breaking down, you're going to get a lot of extra heads out of that fours. I'm sorry, methanol from the cellulose. But things like a blackberry, you don't really need a pectic enzyme with stuff like a blackberry, because it's just, you can see the little berry, and once that berry's broken, you're getting all that sugar out. Whereas like in a meaty peach or an apple or something like that, it's quite more complex, and you have to bust those cells. And freezing and then using the pectic enzymes helps a lot. And yep, we're still talking about food. Well, about 10:30. Has anybody got any more questions? If not, we might close a little early and go up and eat a little something. I've got a little bit of food left I didn't finish at dinner time. I do got a little bit of munchies going on too. So if we don't have a bunch of questions, I ain't in it if somebody's going to ask something. I really wish that Michael would tell me what he's talking about. I promise I won't get mad. They should talk about my mom or something. I guess I'll go over to Twitch and talk to some of them Korean girls and find more about the best sake and rice. My best tasting, it matters, I guess, who you talk to. Some people love my grappa. Supposedly, I made some pretty good grappa, and some people, I'm not. It's hard to say this. That sounded egotistical and like I'm tooting my own horn or anything, but some people say it's the top 10 best thing they've ever tasted, in their lives. And these are people that's done a lot of drinking and done a lot of tasting. And that's a huge compliment, man. I tell you, quite a few people have said it. That's one of the best things they've ever tasted in their lives. So I guess my grappa is probably one of my best things. But back in the day, I made some really, really good whiskey. I'm gonna get back into that. I've been doing a lot of brandies. Like I say, for the last 10 years or so, I've been focused. Not totally. I still do some grains, but I've been really heavy on the brandies and doing blackberries and cherries and blueberries and strawberries and plums and just so many different, fruits and combinations. Um, Definitely, as far as fermenting, on grain, on fruit, as long as I can. Uh, oh, well, they just want that. They just want that high proof stuff, don't they? They don't like that foo. Um, yeah, that's kind of like my root beer and the grappa. The grappa is a 130, which um, it's pretty complex, but it's 130, and anything below 130, when you proof it below 130, it starts to get cloudy because it has so many oils in it, and those oils aren't bad oils; they're good oils, and they've esterified, and they're really good. So I do what's called luching. You basically take a shot and you drop a piece of ice in it, and immediately you'll see it cloud, and then you just take a shot of that, and it's fantastic, man. It's pretty fucking good. But it starts at 130. After you drop the ice in it, it probably drops down to 110 or so pretty quickly. It melts the ice pretty quickly, and you let it work a little while and loose it, and then drink it, kind of like an absinthe. Done similar to an absinthe. I'm not gonna give up all my secrets, but it's pretty damn good stuff. It's very complex though. I mean, it takes 2 years to make it. So aging and esterification and distillation, and then re I mean, I make the wine first, and that's over a year, and then I make the distillate, and then I let it sit and work, and then I'll add some walnuts to it to get some of the walnut oil, and it's just so fucking good. It's pretty damn good. Yeah. Um, as for flavor, on grain versus off grain, I definitely, if you're talking about fermenting, I ferment everything on grain. My wines, some of them, it depends on what it is. Um, some of the wines, you want to get the grape skins out early. So, after I use the pectic enzyme to eat all the grape up, and with the skins, I'll get those off, like day two. And then after that, it's pretty much just a little bit of a yeast bed and flocculence that build up. But but yeah, a lot of times you'll want to get the grape skins out of there. So that's kind of an off fruit. I won't have it on there for the secondary, or much of the primary fermentation for that matter. Um, but yeah, definitely fermenting. If you can distill on grain, that's awesome. It takes basically a bag inside your boiler to do that, a false bottom. I know in the favorite footballs they've got the false bottom, and you can put your bag in there and distill on the grain and get some really good flavors. Jacketed steels, you can do it that way, and get some really good flavors. You can moths this time. And you can also, like a double boiler. So if you got a big pot, you can put a few bricks in the bottom of it, fill it, halfway with water, set your steel inside of that. I got a buddy that does that, does it like a double boiler. And instead of water, you could use anything. You could use cooking oil. You could use glyco, ethylene glycol, glycogen, glycol, whatever, because it's not actually coming in contact with anything you drink. So it's just up to 200, and keep a constant 200 on it, and you don't have to worry about scorching any of the grain that way. Kind of like a double boiler is basically what it is. Yeah, I've got friends that do it that way as well. Yeah, absinthe is interesting. It's interesting stuff. It's different. But this grappa, yeah, it's I distilled it in a way to compress oils, and bring all that flavor of the grape. It's a white grape, um, deskinned, and I bring a lot of that flavor forward, and with compressing the oils in it, and then aging it. Age it well. It's an aged wine. It's a white wine that's aged. It's a sweeter wine. I call it sweet heat. It's got a pretty high alcohol content. I stop the fermentation before it gets dry so I can get a specific taste I'm looking for. And then I age it for a little bit over a year and a couple few months. I think this last batch was. And then I distill it, and then it sits in a jar for another 3 or 4 or 5 months, doing its thing inside the jar. And then I'll throw some walnuts in there to help finish it, and add some walnut oil flavor to it. And it's fucking awesome. It's really good. Yeah, I understand, bro. Yeah. And that's the way most people do it. I'd say 95% of all hobbyists don't do on grain. I mean, it's just something that you have to have that jacketed steel or a special steel to do. Um, it's really, you wouldn't be able to do it in a keg unless you had like one of those 4-inch. If you had a 4-inch ferrule cut the top, I mean, you could literally hang a boiling bag inside there as long as it doesn't get near the bottom, and you could let it kind of do its thing in the boiling bag. Don't use a paint strainer bag for that. But some of these bags are designed to be boiled, and so you could kind of hang your grain. Once you sparge it, you want to sparge it, get all the powdery stuff off, so you don't get a lot of that bubbling off and scorching during your run. But you could sparge off all that and use some grain in there to definitely build up some flavor. I appreciate that, Mr. Dance. Tell I needed that, didn't you, buddy? All right, here's ring the bell. Oh hell, that's something leaning against my. That sounds like a boxing match bell, doesn't it? Does that sound to y'all like a boxing? Y'all want to see what that is? Now I can't believe. That's all math, Anthony. That's math. I mean, I could sit and work it out for you, but let's see. 24, 120 proof jars. Temp them down to 100 proof. So that's 20 proof. Man, yeah, you got to drink too many shots to fucking do this math. Ask me next time when I'm sober. Now, let's see, 24. Well, 120 proof jar. Now, are we talking about pints or quarts, bro? But you're just 20%. So you're going from 120 to 100. So if that's if 10% difference, I guess, from 200, which is pure. 200 is pure alcohol. So 200 is 100% alcohol, right? It's 200 proof is 100%. So let's just go by percent instead of proof. So technically, you're going from 60% to 50%. So you're only losing 10%. So or you're gaining 10% when you proof it. So maybe 2.4 jars or something. I don't know. I think you're going to get 2.4 more jars. Is that right? I think. Quarts. Yeah. Yeah, I think you just get like 2.4 more, maybe a half a gallon, maybe 3 jars more. Because it's just 10%. You're only changing it 10% from 120 to 100. If 200 is, 200% is 100. 200 proof is 100%. Which is about basically impossible to get. You can do a 200%, but the second it touches air, it starts breaking itself down. People don't realize it, but ethanol is hygro, Hygro, scopic, not hydro with a D. It's hygro with a G, and it's hygroscopic. And if you've ever seen these little desiccant packs of silicone gel and stuff that they want to absorb moisture so that things don't rust, these little packs, desiccant, it's a desiccant. Well, ethanol is a desiccant. And ethanol, once you leave it open, it literally sucks moisture out of the air, which is why when you drink like a shot of pure grain, 191, pure grain, that's why it burns the fuck out of your throat and parches you, because it's literally sucking moisture out of your skin, out of your cells, man. It's fucking crazy. It's tough. How long do you let your run air after you're done with the run? I let it air out for like a 24-hour period. Good question. It helps get a lot of your higher alcohols out, and more volatile alcohols and acetones and things will evaporate first. Your methanol and a lot of your higher propanols and stuff will evaporate early on and evaporate off fairly quickly. They're really the first thing to boil off generally and air off. But because azeotropes, they go all the way through. That's a different story. But I do it for 24 hours, Brian. I'll put a little cheesecloth over it just to keep the bugs out and keep things from getting in it and making it all dusty and shit. And mostly for the damn moss and fruit flies I got flying around here. Um, but that'll help take some of the bite out of it as well, because a lot of those higher alcohols tend to give you a little bite. So it'll help in that regard too. But at the same time, it's hygroscopic, so it's literally sucking moisture out of the air. So it'll proof itself down by pulling water out of the air and by evaporating alcohol out. So you don't want to leave it out too long, or you're going to lose some alcohol. But it certainly helps to let it air out for a day, for sure. And I've seen people just take their lids and take the lid off and just use the ring and just do that with some cheesecloth or paper towels or toilet paper or whatever the hell you got on hand. Just basically the alcohol will still evaporate through the pores and membrane, in the paper towels and things like that. Cheesecloth makes it real easy, But yeah, coffee filters might be a little dense, Paper towels probably got a little bit more porosity to it than a coffee filter, and they're a lot more expensive. Those coffee filters are. So paper towels, pretty good way to go if you're worried about dust. Yeah, but let's see. Let me do the math. 24. 24 quarts is 6 gallons. So if you got 6 gallons times 6%, you're going to add a 0.6 gallons. So yeah, about 2 quarts and a little over. You're going to add a little over 2 quarts. 2.4 would probably be about right. Yep, my final answer. All right, everybody. Well, we've been at it to 2:45. I've got the munchies. I'm blaming that on Steve. So how's that electric keg still working, John? How many watts you using? So that's something I've not done yet. Is use the electric elements. I've been kind of, I don't know. I've been skeptical, and then I see, some nightmares of, scorched liquor coming off these elements, all that crack stuff. That's scorched powder from the grain that got stuck to this and then just scorched and cracked. Um, yeah, I see shit like that. It makes me wonder. Have you ever? Do you use stainless, John? Well, I mean, Steve, they say it works, and I've got buddies that do it, and I've never done it. So I'm not gonna profess to know anything about it other than just what they've told me. But they swear up and down by it. I've drank their liquor, and it's not. It's yeah, stainless. It's not bad. I mean, it's not scorched. I don't see how it keeps from it. I guess you got to clear it good, but they get great results. It does it fast. It's, they swear by it. They swear they'd never go back to propane again. I agree. I think if you get it cleared real good, it'd be great. But I think if you get some, if you got a lot of fine grain, milled fine stuff, and it's real chalky and powdery, and you got, real milky, I think that, you might end up with this. I think that's what happened here is all this, and this is just broke off stuff that got burnt and stuck to the element. That's a stainless steel element. You can see it's one of those angled ones. And I can't remember the name of the people that make those, but they're pretty popular and pretty good. But this is what happens to them if you put real milky stuff in there. That shit'll build up. Yeah, yeah. Tom uses them. A lot of people use them. They swear by them. I think Tom has like 5,500 watts in his, and matter of fact, I know he does. And he runs it and knocks it out in a heartbeat. No, not Bever. It's I'd have to, let me see. I'll find that for you real quick, man. They make other distilling equipment. Denord. And that's not Denord. Um, I can't put the link up. But now that wavy one that you're looking at there, I'm pretty sure that's a Denord. Yeah, yeah. So or if it's just, moving or just, sparged well and don't have a lot of real fines in there. But the scorching is what I worried about, because when I was young, when I first got started, I dealt with a lot of scorching until I figured out, you know, how to make mash without burning it, how to cook corn without scorching it. That was quite a bit. for a young teenager. I was in my early 12, 13 years old. So I was fucking a lot of shit up. But hell, we loved it. We drank that scorched shit. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that stainless element that I was looking at is called Denord. That's a 5500 watt, 240 volt ripple heating element. And it's the one with the wave, so it fits in a small. I think they do that to help them fit in a keg. That way it won't go all the way across, but you get more element surface than a straight one. But yeah, that's a Denord, and I'm sure there's other companies that also make the bent ones like that, but Denord is the name I was looking for. And I would definitely go with the stainless. I've heard of people going to Home Depot and Lowe's and just getting water heater ones and having mixed results. I've seen a lot of burnt elements out that way too, and a little bit of scorching. But I would probably spend a little bit more money and get one of those Bernard wavy ones, kind of like this one. That's the Denord there. Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. Hey, jump in there and ask questions, man. Anytime you want to. I remember seeing you in the militia. Thanks for joining, and ask any questions you got, man. We will get you up and running. Man, you'll be turning out some shit your buddies will be amazed at, man. They'll be like, there's no fucking way you made this shit, bro. They'll be wanting to learn as soon as they taste it, especially once you start putting it on some wood and getting some wood in there that's been charred. Like we'll teach you using some of the spirals or some chips or the wood staves from the barrels just cut up and charred with a torch. Yeah, once you start aging it with some wood like that, getting some of that, whiskey flavor to it, because like in a whiskey, 60 to 80%, believe it or not, 60 to 80% of the flavor that you taste in a whiskey is coming from the wood. 30 to 40%, or 20 to 40% is coming from what you do prior to that. So mashing, distilling, all that work, everything you do that's your unique 20 to 40%. What's left on after that is pretty much what barrel you use or what char. And man, once you get to making a pretty good whiskey, even with just the cracked corn, and I mean, I can take fucking cracked corn and bread yeast Fleischmann's off the fucking shelf, and I can age that in some oak, man, and you wouldn't believe that it just came from a cracked corn mash and just a simple ingredient mix like that, man. You would just be amazed at what you can do with amylase. But yeah, it's amazing what little and how much that wood gives you. So um, finding some of those wood staves, they're cheap as fuck. If you can find somebody that's got those barrels, they're broken up, especially ones that are broken. They don't have much use anymore for a lot of people. Some people saw them in half and use them as planters for plants and shit. So you can get those staves for like a quarter each, and they're 3 foot long or so. I get mine from my next door neighbor. He makes a lot of arts and crafts with them, and he saves me the little bits, and I'll barter. I'll give him a little bit of aged, and he's a bourbon aficionado, and he's amazed. Also, he's like, I mean, he drinks that top shelf stuff, that $high stuff, and he's pretty amazed at what I make in a short period of time. Of course, it's not up to his standards. He's a weller, and he drinks a lot of that high end stuff. Well, I'm glad you're here, brother. We're here, Jeff. We're here on every Wednesday night and every Saturday night. So at 8 o'clock, unless something's up. If I'm not here, something either I'm sick or there's something important going on. Now I do some um, festivals during the summers, so there's going to be some Saturdays that I miss. but I'll probably try to get on here maybe and do some remotes at the party, and maybe you can meet some of the people from the militia. We all get together and have a good time, and we each get to share a lot of our uh, different jars and different distillates that we've made, and it's a lot of fun, man. How long have I been doing this? Since Wow, it's almost 50 years now. I was 12, 13 when I first got started. I'm 62, so almost 50 years now, brother. That ain't a bad thing to do. If you planning on, I'm glad you jumped in there, man. They have a lot of fun. They talk about a lot of good stuff in there, man. They especially Lisa, man. She's very knowledgeable about plants, and so I think her and Mark Morgan are going to start doing a live on like putting up foods, or no, what is it? Tinctures, making tinctures and stuff, and a lot of remedies. She's very extremely knowledgeable about plants and plant remedies and tinctures and stuff. Yeah, she's the bomb, man. Love her. She's a sweet gal. Very, very good person. Not made a better person than Lisa, man. Salt of the earth, just as good as they come, brother. And she joins us on the shit show and some of the other podcasts. She'll jump in here, and she's definitely very knowledgeable about her plants and holistic medicine with plants and herbs and stuff. It's a lot of fun listening to them. But yeah, if you're worried about tariffs, man, it's definitely the time to go and get some of this stuff. I was thinking about that as well, because there are some things that Philby doesn't have that I want to get, and I think Oak Steels is definitely a China company, and that's who has some pretty decent deals. But uh, if Philby can't get it, I'm gonna have to fight the tariff wars, I guess. But it's all for the best. I'm not really that worried about it. I think it's fair. I think we've been taken advantage of too long. I don't think any party would argue with that unless they just hate Trump. So I try not to talk politics in here, but I can't imagine any true American not wanting us to not be taken advantage of by other countries and the tariffs that they charge us, and expect nothing in return. So, that's kind of silly. I know they were awful in favor of it when they ran the show. So, yeah, it'll all work out. I mean, used to our country operated only on tariffs. We didn't have income taxes and a lot of these taxes and stuff. We pretty much operated on tariffs. Not saying we can do that these days, but I think with the waste that they're finding and the fraud they're finding and the tariffs and bringing a lot of manufacturing back home where it belongs, it can only help our economy in the long run. So I think the stock market will come back, and I think it'll be stronger and better than it was before. But it's just a growing pain that we're having right now. You just gotta suffer through it and look at it as a good time maybe to buy some good stock that's down. That's if you used to maybe Tesla, probably a good time to buy Tesla when it's way down like this. They beat it down. I don't know what the car company's going to look like in the long run. They're open source. They don't patent anything. So, I think Elon's a great guy, does a lot, but I'm not sure how Tesla will stand the test of time. But on a lot of other places like Amazon, we know they're not going anywhere. I mean, they're going to be around places like that. So there's a lot of different places that might be a good time to invest for something. I do a little bit of investing. So, yep. Yeah, I mean, used to we could talk about politics and talk about our certain viewpoints and how we agree and disagree, and at the end we just get drunk, laugh, and move on about our business. But now it's just the media's made it so polarized. People can't agree to disagree. They got to be at each other's throats and talk, death threats and everything else over just politics and stuff. It's crazy where they've managed to take people, and it's all just brainwashing mostly. propagandizing and brainwashing. That's what they do. That's why they use propaganda. They know that if something's repeated often enough, people start to believe it. So, but that's probably for another podcast. Nate and I have been talking about doing a political podcast, and I've been pushing the idea around. I don't want a lot of people, because I know that there's probably people from the left and right both that enjoy my podcast, and that learn from this, and I don't want them either or to get upset with me because my views kind of go back and forth on each of them. So I don't agree with everything Trump is doing on a lot of things, and I definitely don't agree with a lot of things the Democrats have changed to. So it's not the same Democrat Party I used to belong to, past tense. I was a Democrat most of my life, but they're not the same. I'm more independent now. Um, but there's certain things from both parties that I like and dislike, and when it comes to it, I think a lot of times the corruption is on both sides. So I think there's innocent Democrats and innocent Republicans that aren't part of the deep state, or whatever you want to call it. But there's definitely some from both sides that are corrupt and involved. So I think it goes beyond that. Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I'm trying to become neutral as far as that. Out of rye. Uh-oh. You ever used wheat? Yeah, I don't either. Straight line. I don't agree with either party straight line either. Jeff, if you ever malted some wheat, you get you some wheat and malt it and use it. It's great diastatic, and you like sweet. It can give you some interesting flavors. I love the wheat notes. So try substituting rye with some wheat notes and see what you get. It'll be a little messy, but so is a finely grained rye. So I've made it to 11. I'm bullshitting my way through another 30 minutes. So I'm gonna have to get off here, guys and gals. Great y'all coming in. Definitely come back and see us on Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Pure rye from a friend. Now, rye, make sure you get the right kind of rye. Use a distilling type rye, not just like a rye seed, because it's going to be a little different. So make sure you're getting the right kind of rye. So y'all have a great night, and will be a great rest of your weekend. And yeah, send me something in my messenger, man. Something good to listen to. Night, brother. Take care, bro. Anytime, Brian. I'm glad y'all joined us, and we'll be back Wednesday night. And I'm going to read about rice. I'll know a little bit more about my rice when we come back. So uh, be ready to take the test on rice, and maybe we can share what we've learned and talk about. I'm going to read a little bit more about this yellow label angel yeast too. So that'll be something interesting. And hopefully by then I'll talk to Michael and Brittany and see what they got going on and how theirs is doing. Because I think they're on day 8 or 9 of their grain and yellow label. So I like heavy metal, brother. Yeah, yeah, I'm good with heavy metal. I'm an old metalhead from the back in the days. All right, you guys, take care. Hit that like button and subscribe. Bring your friends, and let's all learn this craft together, man. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of stuff you want to share with your buddies. So good talking to y'all, and we will see you Wednesday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Shine on, everybody.